We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would like to add to revisit the committee listing for the commissioners, just to verify a couple of points in there.
And you want to add that to your reports or
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So committee. Is there any other additions to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Erica. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Barry. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes from the January 7th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
I don't have anything.
I had none.
What?
That's two in a row now. I just want you to know that's two in a row I have to add nothing. No corrections or additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second? Second by Phil. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, carried. Consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda that anybody would like pulled out?
I had some questions on one, but I can ask. It's under Denise's. It's not that I don't have a question approving it. I just have questions on when this started, the grant. So if that's all right, I just ask those questions then.
Yeah. Anything else anybody else on the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Commissioners, open forum. Do we have anybody on the open? Nobody on the open forum. All right, reports and correspondence. Who would like to go first?
Well, I can be a rookie, so I guess I can go first. And I would, maybe not in the meeting, but afterwards you can tell me if this is too much or too little. If you
Too
want
much.
more or
Too
less.
much.
All right, all right.
Oh, you got to turn it on.
All right, so I had a law library meeting, went well, two resolutions there, both of them passed. One on the 14th, had the Recreational Advisory Committee meeting, talked a little about the Heartland Trail. And then just for everyone's information, I think everyone knows this, Hank Ludke has some serious health issues, and he is resigning from all of his boards, and RAC is one of them, but I know he's on some other boards that
EDA? Is he still on EDA?
He's
So-
officially resigned from both of those two.
So,
Did we get a written resignation?
Yes,
Yep,
we did.
okay.
so he will need replacements on the boards he was on. Had the watershed on the 15th, just the Bucks Mills Dam restoration south of Lake Melissa is well underway with the engineering portion of it. And we have a Rice Lake Phase 2 up here north of town, are two big projects for the watershed next summer. We were going to talk about Dunton Locks a little bit later down, so that's on the agenda, so we'll talk about that. One other thing that we need to get hopping on is we need a memorandum of understanding from the county and the watershed. Watershed is going through its rules, and we're in the public phase right now, so 8:30 on, was it February 12th, is the comments for rules revision. So we need to make sure that we're all on the same page, or at least have an understanding. We've got it with the city already, but we need to have something with the
You
county.
mean the watershed has to have it? They have it with the city.
Yep,
The 12th is Wednesday.
it's a Wednesday. Yep, at 8:30.
So what do we need? They have, is there,
We need to get memorandum of understanding, but at that's the public hearing.
Right.
So if, we need to, in my opinion, we need to streamline to make sure the county knows what the watershed's doing, the watershed knows what the county's doing, so there can be a better understanding there.
This is kind of like what we did with Cormant watershed, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
so we're not
Should be.
doubling up on permits and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So,
Is that right?
so the customer needs to know where to go and what they need to do.
Yeah.
And it's just, is that something they got to go to the county for? Is that something they need to go to the watershed for? So just, and whatever that looks like, and if the county doesn't want some of the rules or wants to talk about some of the things the watershed's doing, we need to have that, they need to have that discussion before we come to this memorandum of understanding.
Do we need a board workshop on that, or is it a carried? I don't know.
I don't know.
I was just going to ask, as far as a memorandum, I think we would need some information about what we want in this memorandum.
Yeah.
I look at the customer, I look at the taxpayer, I look at them and I say, hey, they shouldn't be, oh, you gotta go to watershed for that, or you gotta go for the county for that. I think we have an obligation to make this as, it's shore impact zones and it's tough enough already. We need to be working together and make sure the customer knows exactly what they need to do to get their permits and stuff.
Well, can we put that on our next agenda? See, just to clarify where we're at with it, if we need to have a workshop after the meeting or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring
Can
it
do
back.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. At Highway on the 16th, me and Richard at Highway, going to be getting a new road sweeper potentially, but then they just gave project updates and by 2 minutes the bids for those, and that was really about it.
Except for we're now getting bids for that Heartland Trail.
Oh,
So the bridge to nowhere will now be the bridge to the
To
turkey.
somewhere?
To the
Yeah.
turkey.
and
To the turkey.
Yeah.
I stayed for the bid opening after. They came in at about
20% under.
22% under, to be exact.
yeah, what the engineer's estimate was, so, and it was it Haug?
Haug.
Haug that got the bid.
Huh?
So that'll be done this summer.
Do you have any more, or is that it?
That's it?
Anybody, who else wants to?
I can go quick, or
go ahead.
you want to go? Just a couple more things on the rec. We had a lot of discussion on the rental of the Denton Locks shelter. That's possibly going to be open for the public on the target date is June 1st. Also applying for a grant through the DNR to address some of the buckthorn out at Denton Locks. And then we just discussed, we had a conversation about like tax forfeited land and if there are any that we could look at making a county park. We had our EDA meeting, and then just back to the openings on the RAC committee. With Hank's resignation, we do have two. So we have an at-large and
District 3.
the District 3 representative. And then Richard and I had the EDA. We had our annual meeting. We also will have a District 3 opening from Hank's in the EDA. There was some discussion amongst us on the DL Housing Summit. So they had a DL Housing, or Detroit Lakes had their housing summit in December where they went over their housing study. So just trying to look at ways to explore that maybe county and the cities could address our housing issues in Becker County. We're also going to start to go over and update our EDA strategy plan. And then just a note that I thought was interesting. We recently got a little over $8,000 from recovery from a former tenant. So I thought that was a good deal. Usually we don't, when a tenant moves out and there's a lot of damage, usually we don't see that, but
Pretty amazing.
yeah, we did just get over 8,000 from, it was one tenant. So we went over our job descriptions for planning and zoning, we had human services, everything's on the agenda. We also discussed the job descriptions for human services, and then we had our White Earth meeting. We got an update on some of the legislative topics, and we're waiting for a updated quote from lobbyists.
Just something on that housing study. The city had it done,
Yep.
and according to that study, we need 37 to 42 new homes per year for 5 years.
Units. So that,
Units.
yep, so that could
So
be
it
apartment.
could be apartments.
Yep.
2 or 3.
But still, that's
2 or 3
significant.
bedroom units. That's what that housing study
Yep.
came up with.
Yep. That, and that's just for the city. That's not for the whole county.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was there any, with all the money that the state dumped into housing last year, is there any programs new programs that we should be looking at or trying to, I mean, that's something to,
Well, we do have, I think it's 230,000 dedicated for housing, to do something with, but that's such a drop in the bucket
Yeah, it's
to,
nothing. So we keep looking at ways to try and build a house.
there
We
have
didn't have
been
any
programs out there, but, you have to have you have to have a plan, and you can't find contractors really that are willing to build housing because they have to be income-based for many of those programs. And when you're looking at income-based, there's no money to be made off of them, so.
Do
that's
you
the
want to
conundrum.
subsidize them?
I mean, that's really what it would have to come down to.
Well, that's our discussion. We don't want to either,
I
but
thought that's what the state was doing when they dumped how many, what is it,
Well,
$1 billion they put in
A lot,
housing?
yeah, it was.
Yeah, it
I don't
didn't
remember
work out
They
that
added,
well, though.
they added 60 new jobs at the state
Yeah, 60 new jobs to do that.
or something.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we have like $1 million of Merle funds, but
That
that's,
we can't
that
spend.
we can't touch, but that's
We tried touching them and then they
Merle.
slapped their
It's a
fingers.
federal state program that's no longer there, that we're just holding on to the money for.
Well, we can do things with current homes with Merle, but
That's
that,
what we were trying to do. We're
But-
still trying to do it. There's a lady, her house is falling in. And we're working
is
on,
that the one in Frazee?
yeah, and we're trying to help her.
It has to actually be, it's a lot more
It
complicated. than
gets so
just-
complicated.
Yeah, it's a program that's been, they haven't had it now. It's a federal program but you got to end all of them before you can get rid of the
Yeah,
program.
and I think our last Merle payment is in 2036, I think. So we have to hold on to this money until it's, basically what it is houses that we purchased with Merle funds, and then we're selling them like contract for deed.
Back to the owner.
Back to the owner, and they pay us back, and then once all of them are paid, then we give the money back to.
Richard, Erica, are there ways to collaborate with other ED? I know the city has a development authority. Lake Park, I think, has some. Frazee has. Are there ways to
Yep.
collaborate and together?
Well, Cody has, I know Frazee for sure. I believe he's met with all the EDAs, and I think it's really just, it's kind of like what we said at our joint governance meeting, in that I don't think that it's anything that one entity can do. I think it's going to take collaboration, and so yes.
So those lines of communication are wide open.
Oh, yeah. And I believe actually we have somebody on the EDA from Lake Park EDA. Like our EDA members are also EDA
Abby
members
is
on
pretty
it.
active.
Abby.
Yep, Abby's pretty
In Lake
active.
Park.
And Hank was on the Frazee EDA, but
Karen Pfeiffer over there is
yep,
on the EDA too. She's.
yep.
Richard and I had land use, I think that's, we had a Dutton Locks update, and it looks like it's going to be on schedule to open up maybe even early, but we're not going to take anything until it's finished, any reservations. We had a discussion about what we should do with the old shelter. I guess that's something that this board should talk about. Would we take all the walls out of the old bathroom and leave the shelter up, or should we cut it down? I don't think it should stay up as is. I think if anything, it could be cut and then cut for just a couple picnic tables, and keep the concrete, and then take the old part off where
We did talk about that at RAC too.
that I think would be probably what I would lean towards more, so we get rid of that. Doesn't need to be that big, in my opinion.
And we talked about matching it a little bit so they're not so to just start
Well,
new
if
things.
it's a little bit farther away, it would help not to be matching. I don't think we want to put a lot of money into trying to match that because that would cost too much money. I think you just, finish, cut it off and finish the, as cheaply as possible. Or otherwise take it completely down and just have a a slab there for picnic tables with,
And nothing covered.
and nothing, no cover. I mean, that's probably my preferred one, but if we just kept a small portion of it, so,
Yeah.
And then the trail's gotta be adjusted too, a
it's,
little bit.
I think you clutter that up too much and you lose the appeal to that area
Yeah.
to them. But we'll take a look. We'll have to go out there and look at it, see when it's complete. But we approved the grant for trying to get some buckthorn control out there. The South Twin Public Access, that's the access that we cross DNR Aquatic Management Area to get to, a very small area. And if they say we can't do that, we'd either have to get an easement from a private landowner to get on top, because it's a ridge that cuts that off pretty bad. So we're just kind of letting it be, nobody's really requesting it, and it's pretty low use right now, so we're just going to let it go and see what happens. If we have to go off our own land, we'd have to cut that ridge down and try to, it would be, for what it is, it's pretty significant for how low use that area is, in my opinion. So hopefully the DNR just lets that access continue and go with that.
Barry, what committee are you reporting from?
This is a natural NRM.
NRM. So, I mean, these were the same conversations we had in the RAC. Is there some duplicity there that we can?
Well, we can get rid of RAC because that's what was suggested. That's what I suggested.
Well,
That's been a long discussion.
okay. Well, I'm not up to speed on that, but, the RAC would, I mean,
It's
I
all
always
those
felt,
things that went through RAC always went through NRM.
Yeah.
And we created RAC to get public involvement on new trails, on new activities is what this was supposed to, RAC is supposed to be. Because we had requests to do ATV trails and horse trails, and those new trails that all these people were wanting to do on public lands were going to go through RAC, and RAC was going to try to find out how to get those through, or any activities on public lands. It's evolved now. I think Steve and Mitch are just including RAC in most of the discussions on what's going on or what things are available in the county. So
I'm not opposed to having that conversation. I mean, just because, I mean, their time has to be in 2 meetings, and we're talking about a lot of the same things, so.
well,
I don't
I'm
know
not
what that
even
looks
close
like.
to done with this. So yeah, I'll be mentioning probably everything that has been brought to RAC also. But
Okay.
Let's see, that was the grant. Heartland, we did discuss the Heartland Trail opening. And we also talked about the designating tax forfeit land as public parks or not, what the pros and cons are. We can't just do everything, because then we'd lose PILT payments. But if there's an area where you want to have a public park, then you can designate that. Lose PILT payments, but if it's a small tract, that's not going to be too significant. Woods and Wheels had a grant and aid application. We're supporting that. Timber sales are May 2nd, October 23rd. We looked at some potential land sales for 2025. Going to review those again. Mary wasn't at that meeting. She was playing hooky, so we thought we'd wait for her. We reviewed the credit card charges I don't think there were even any. We talked about the forest maintenance road last year, and Mitch last year didn't spend his full budget, so we're working on trying to make sure that we can get nice sports cars traveling on all our forest trails for Jerry Schramm, so we can get his, I wish Jerry was here.
low-profile
No,
ones.
no, but we did emphasize that we want to try to maintain those, but last year was a busy year for contractors, and he had difficulty trying to get people out there to do those smaller jobs. It's difficult. Richard, anything else to add to?
Well, we were talking about swimming beaches, because we are short on swimming beaches, and they probably don't cost that much to maintain them. And they are important. We are short on them. And then we were talking about primitive camping too. Hopefully something we don't need employees for, maybe just some maintenance.
And I think we were going to check on if you have them, if you promote and you sell, I mean, not sell or have primitive camping, there are some requirements for facilities, bathroom facilities, if you have those nearby. So I think that was something that, I mean, if we have one porta potty, in an area, but we also remember that on tax forfeit land, you are free to camp wherever you want for a period of up to what, 2 weeks, Steve, is it, or?
Yep.
And then you just have to move. So camping is available. It's just that there's no established sites to go and just start camping. So and as far as the swim beaches, we have some areas that have opportunities for swim beaches, but we don't know if the population is in that area is close enough to utilize them. So then you don't necessarily want to establish a swim beach if there's nobody going to utilize that. Unlike Middle Corman, which on a hot day is backed up, is cars parking all over. So I think that's something we want to recognize. Is there a need in that area for a swim beach? And if there is, then we certainly move forward with it.
And if I recall, when I was on the RAC committee, one of the hurdles for the primitive camping that we ran into was the Minnesota Department of Health requires Minnesota Department of Health approved water supply within a certain distance from those primitive campsites. Is that correct, Mitch? Yeah. So that was one of the hurdles.
Yeah. We don't want to.
No.
If it is, it's primitive and carry in, carry out type of stuff. So.
And we were talking about that Eagle Lake swim beach too, and I don't know what's going to become of that.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, and that one's has a more population-based area, so that would be.
Usually a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So I'd hate to see it get closed. But
and I think John was working on that one.
And so Phil.
But
do we know who he was working with? Was it whoever owned
yeah.
it?
Yeah. It's a group of owners out there on Eagle Lake that purchased it. Now I haven't heard. Did they close on that, Mitch or Steve? Did you hear from Frazee? Frazee sold it, or they were trying to sell it. And if they haven't closed, maybe we should. Carrie, would you check on that to see if Frazee is closed on that, and if not, we should probably
Not drop the ball.
stick our nose in there and see what's going on. And
Yeah, I'd hate to see that get closed.
That'd be terrible.
So what that looks like is some individual owners had purchased that from the city, but I had heard that they were going to try to keep that open and that where the county would come in.
yes, I think they were going to try to sell off a portion of it and then sell off
Yeah.
the landing and the swim beach back to the county
Yeah, it'd be nice to get an update
to
on
try to keep that open.
because that's the only public area on the whole lake.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it might help us if there's parking for AIS, we get paid per parking, it's a calculation per parking spot. So if we add more parking spots, we'd get a bigger portion of that pie probably at the state level. But the only other meeting I had was Carrie and I, I asked Carrie for a meeting with Denise and about some employee wanted to try to share a job, and it's kind of a it's quite complicated. So Carrie was going to look into if something that we were going to look into, it should be a countywide policy. But then we did think that there was a furlough policy in place already. I don't know if you're all aware, but we've had a furlough policy in place for probably 15 years now, where an employee with the department head's approval can ask for a furlough. So in this case, if someone wanted to do that would be a short term or a 6 month or 1 year ask for a furlough, and if they wanted to go down to 80%, then if in this case there was an employee that wanted to go part time and pick up those hours because they have kids at home now, so they're resigning their full time position. So that was something that we were going to look into, and I think that would probably be something that would be able to be doable, where the countywide policy will take some time. Is that if employees, but one thing that kind of brought up is now that we're kind of back in employees, there's more employees available for jobs. I think we look at part-time positions again. I mean, in the past now we've been taking all all part-times and just transferring them to full-time but in the past we've offered that for part-time positions and looked at that. I think now as we can move back into looking at that more seriously, than just automatically going full-time, so.
I
So-
think one issue with part-time, just from a human services perspective, is many of the positions over at Human Services are case management positions, which make it very difficult to do part-time because you have a caseload that you have certain requirements that you have to complete every month on that caseload. So it's not something that you come and you do the same thing for your 8-hour period and leave. It really depends on, if you have an appointment and can't make that appointment for whatever reason, it's canceled, you have to make that time up somewhere else. So part-time is just very, very difficult.
I can see
for
where if
human
you were gonna
services, case
hire,
management.
if you were gonna hire like a .2 would be silly. You wouldn't do
Yep.
that. But when you have an employee that wants to reduce that's already in that position and says, I am resigning this because I have to spend more time at home. I think we all know that there are employees that put in a lot more work, and there's employees, and if you have a good employee that you'd like to bring back someday, I think you try to work in some of those ways to keep that employee engaged and in your county. But I think on a .2 countywide policy, to hire a new employee would be not doable. You can't unless it's just something in Parks and Rec where there's not. I mean, it's where it's not something you have to have the big knowledge or the base.
Yep.
But as a current employee, a furlough might be the option that you could make this work in this
Like a
in
temporary.
a situation on a temporary basis. But
What does the cost to the county, like, what would that be? Would that change at all? So if you had 2 part-time employees versus a full-time employee?
Depends
that's
on-
kind of what we-
it depends on. That's why the part-times have been pushed in the past, because you get a part-time under .8 and there's no health insurance. So if you have 50%, there's neither one get benefits, so that would be a cost savings. If you have an 80% and a 20%, the 80% would still get full benefits and the 20% would get nothing, so it'd be a no gain or loss to the county. But if you have a 50-50, then it's a gain. Most of our employees need that health insurance, so it's something that's they want that full-time position. Some people want a .8. I mean, I think if you went across the county, most people would probably want a .8 rather than a full-time to keep their full benefits and get that extra day off.
But I don't think that's fair for the .8, and then what are you gonna get rid of? You're gonna get rid of the stuff you don't wanna do. I mean,
Well, it depends on the position. I mean, in case management, you can't you can't just get rid of anything. You have that case manager. But if you have it's a difficult. Each situation would be different. I mean, in this case, so. But I think it something to look into. I don't think they're gonna. It's gonna be difficult countywide policy. It'd be very difficult to do a countywide policy on that. For what we're looking at, if you have 2 employees, 2 full-time employees, one is resigning, but they'd still like to do some time because they love the job so much, that is a .2, and one is a .8 because they want to spend a little more time with their family also and kids. That's a situation where to change policy would be, to consider everything would be a huge undertaking to try to figure out how that works. But a furlough option, for short term might be something that would work.
Do you know what our furlough, is there a max per year on our furlough? I think currently it's 80 hours a year, isn't it?
We modified some of that, so off the top of my head, I don't know that I'd be able to tell you.
Okay.
It's really been, policy has been by department and situational, individually. Each situation is looked at. And back to the question of the cost, if you have 2 part-time we'll call it or job sharing, the one thing that you would be doubling up on would be workers' comp. You'd be paying workers'
sure.
comp for both. The other thing that you would be, I think, opening would be then if you have an employee that's working, we'll say 30 hours and the other's working 10, just for the math, then at 30 hours, then the county's obligated to furnish the health insurance as well. And we historically haven't most of the time. There might be an instance, but most of the time, part-time people have been kept under that 30-hour
Yeah, usually it's like
threshold because of
28.
the
I think though that in the past, Mary, and I'm talking 20 years ago, in the past, if you didn't work full-time, 40 hours, and you worked 30 hours even, you would get prorated benefits.
With the new federal, once you hit the 30-hour threshold or above, then you
Oh, the
have
new,
to,
yeah,
yes.
okay,
You
so
get full, you get
in the
Yes.
past, it probably was prorated?
Probably was
Yeah, probably was.
prorated differently, but once you consistently hit that threshold, then we have to provide the health insurance.
The full benefits.
Yes.
Yes.
I think another thing that's important to remember too, with specifically over at Human Services, is many of those case management positions, so the social work positions and the public health positions, are income generating. Like when they're meeting with the families, they're
Billable hours.
they're billing insurances, or they're, getting money back from it. So I think sometimes when we're looking at going part-time or splitting it, I think that's another thing that could have a negative impact on, because when you're only working 28 hours, you're likely, you're still having 40 hours of work time, but is it the same amount of money that's going to be able to be dedicated to that targeted case management, that's billable hours? So, which of course would be a question for human service supervisors that would be considering it, but.
Any more? Barry, any more committee?
No, I think we're good.
Richard, you?
The only other thing I had was the safety committee. And so now we're talking about training, CPR training, and we're talking about it for anybody that's comfortable doing it. So any county employee that is comfortable doing it, we think should be trained for it. And then another thing that you're probably gonna see is we should have we're supposed to have numbers on all of our doors, big numbers for emergency. So say something happens in the courthouse, it's more or less to direct the police or fire. But, and you notice this on a lot of other commercial buildings, there's a big number there. So that's something that we're gonna start doing.
I think that's something you work with Judy and the phone, 911 stuff too, I think would probably be all relative to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you.
And then we're gonna have panic buttons in certain places. Should something go wrong, somebody can push a button. And then there's a call system, so you can call, I can't remember what number did we dial? 8800? Yeah. So 8800 and if there's a problem. What's right on there?
Richard, for safety, who were you meeting with? Who was directing you on, or who's in our county?
It's Cody and I.
Cody Piper is in charge of it, but we had a lot of, somebody from every, she was there. Somebody from every department almost, didn't we?
The goal, yes, I believe we had probably somebody we're trying to get all representation across the county. Safety committee is mandated. There's statutorily there's requirements, and we were really just needing to get back up to speed. So it's been a work in progress, getting everything going.
And we still a contract?
We still have a contract with Safe Assure, yes.
Safe Assure is a big one site and on premises and look for safety concerns and keep us in line on that too.
Yep.
They also do our online trainings, and there's been some work in progress with the safety committee to bring back on some on-site, and that'll start, I believe, it's either, I think it's February. Some on-site, from what I understand, the county somewhat got away from the on-site trainings through COVID, and it just needs to be really brought back again. Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so, that training starts actually, it looks like in January and goes all the way
Next week?
through
Yeah.
July and August. Different training for different things, but that's all I got.
I'll be quick. I had a couple. I'll go fast. The nice thing about being last is I can't talk as long as I know. So I had a historical society meeting. Actually, I had a couple of them. We had a regular meeting, which I believe they did the ice harvest yesterday for the sculptures. That was the plan, and it was going to be they're going to partner with Project 412. The American Adventure is still there, so if you haven't been able to go, it's in the basement. It's pretty cool.
Is that the Oregon Trail one?
Yep. You'll probably die of dysentery, but you can try again. And then the news, the Carrie actually saw this too. The new sign should be, I think it's up. I don't know if it's supposed to be up this week, I think. The new museum sign. It's really cool. It'll be, so just drive by and see if it's up. It's a pretty cool sign. And then also they're having a new exhibit that they're going to roll out here pretty soon. It's not quite finished, but it's called the peat bog bison exhibit. So there was a bison that was in a peat bog, and they kind of preserved it, and then did they just make I don't know how they did it, but it looks kind of cool. It looks kind of, the bison bones are in the peat, and it's on a display, and it wasn't quite finished yet, but it was pretty interesting looking. And then we also met with the guy his name is Jerry from Deed, and that was a long process, but we got it done.
No, we're not done yet.
Oh, not done, but not done. You're not done yet. No, it's close. So that'll work. And then he also had a tour of the facility, and then so I got to go on another tour. It was actually that part of it was pretty interesting. But yeah, Becky and Carrie have been working diligently on the deed stuff, so I guess they got more work to do. Then I also had a Lakes Country Service Co-op meeting, and it was the regular annual meeting. And so we had the organization of the board. Basically, everything was basically the same. We had all the same officers and everything. And then we have 2 new board members on that committee, because we had 2 that went off the committee or off the board. So met those people. And then also too, on January 31st at 7 a.m., there is I can't remember, it's called Coffee with, for no other reason, legislatures. And it's run through West Central Initiative and Lakes Country Service Co-op. And I know in our area, Jim Joy and Rob Kupek and I believe Udke are going to be on that. It's a Zoom meeting. And you can just pretty much ask them any question you want, but most of the questions will be curtailed to West Central Initiative and Lakes Country Service Co-op. So, but that's and a lot of probably insurance questions. That's a big hot topic. And then I had my first ever Northwest Emergency Communications Board, and that was, I'd have to say, it was pretty interesting. It was on another Zoom meeting. Basically, it was their annual meeting, and they had just had a meeting I think in December, so there was really nothing new. So all the reports were not new, but they elected all their officers and so forth, and did all through the process of that. The next meeting is in Thief River Falls on March 12th at the courthouse, and then there's a training after that meeting for new members. So I'll be trained after that. Then the last meeting that I had, Erica and I also we had our first portion of the AMC leadership training.
Oh, yeah.
And it was actually really interesting, and actually we're all 3 going to be down there tomorrow in the cities at St. Paul for the second portion of the training. Anyway, it was really nice because in the first half of the training we kind of learned what you do, what your obligations are, what you should be doing as a board chair, vice chair, or administrator, trying to work together. And then in the second half, they give some ideas of how that works and how you can do that, how you can evaluate yourself, or and so forth. So it'll be more expanded on that tomorrow, and then the last meeting will be next week.
One of the speakers was a former
Yeah.
Becker County.
The first ever Becker County Commissioner, or first ever Becker
Administrator.
County Administrator,
He's an administrator down south in,
Stearns.
Stearns County. Yep,
So, Mike Williams, right?
Mike Williams, yeah. Does anybody else have any more reports? Anything? All right. Appointments. It looks like we have, do we have a Lakeland mental health appointment?
no, actually, so this is kind of like like Buffalo Red and Wild Rice, they actually make the appointments. I
Okay.
think they were just confirming that you want to continue with me on the board.
Okay.
And I think we did that on our committee list. I'm
I think we
missing
did do
already.
that on our
So I
committee.
think we've covered that, but
Okay.
they actually make the appointments at their annual meeting for that.
Okay.
We just need to let them know that.
Just let them know that we appointed him on our committee list. Yeah. Do we have one for the Pelican River watershed?
Yeah, we'll need to have an appointment for that, and also the Recreational Advisory Committee.
Yep. Do you have one for the Pelican watershed? Or no?
I thought we were going to put something else.
Yes, it's just to bring it to your attention. It is being advertised, so we'll bring it back. So it is currently being
Okay.
advertised, or
And
was
then-
advertised on Saturday.
And then in your district, Hank Ludke now has, for the Recreation Advisory Committee, and has now officially resigned.
Okay.
So we could appoint, do you have?
John Okeson,
Yeah.
so he volunteered to be on it.
Yep. Would you like to appoint him?
Sure.
Okay. So just make a motion to appoint John Okeson to
I'll
the,
move to appoint John Okeson as a RAC committee member representing District 3. District 3, I believe, yeah.
Second, and that's to fulfill the existing term, the remainder of
the remainder of Hank Ludke's term. Yeah. So we have a motion and,
But-
go ahead.
of Hank's term?
Yep. Hank is the
District three.
I was a member at large, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're doing it on Hank's term, okay?
yep.
Yep.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of motion, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, carried.
And then there's still a member at large
Yes.
opening, right?
Yep.
On that, so that still needs to be filled.
Yeah.
Are we waiting for something, or what's the process for that? Do people apply?
There will be, Carrie will have something on the web saying what all the openings are whenever
Yeah.
there's openings.
Okay,
For watersheds, there's a requirement for days post or time posted publicly. But then everyone just tries to solicit someone they think would be good for that position, and
okay.
I think that the issue for this one is we have more people interested than what
Yes.
we have. There's several people that are interested in
and
the at-large
when there's
position.
several people interested, then we ask for a short biography, just,
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't have, they can do whatever they want. If they're real interested, they might get more, and that might not help them, but if they should show some interest in, and explain who they are, maybe what their background is, or whatever they choose to write in there, but.
I think we had talked at the RAC committee that maybe if you had had conversations with anybody interested in the at-large position, that maybe we could address it at our February 3rd.
And I think it's
Board meeting?
important to get to know, for us, if we don't know who they are, I think it's important for us to get a better feeling who they are. We appoint poor board members, and I think they can cause some issues on board. So
Yeah.
I think if we're in question, I think it's best to hold off than rather just make an appointment to make an appointment. So anyway, Mr. Chair, there is one thing I'd like us to consider, and I have mentioned, I talked to John Okeson. I think with all his years of experience in our highway, as a highway supervisor, as a road maintenance foreman, and been on the board since then, I asked John, would he be interested or be willing to serve on highway committee if needed, for some of those, and he said he would be. So if there's, I would like to have him as a member of the public on that committee if called upon by the committee to give his, I think, valuable input for all his years in that industry to, so I would like to see him continue on that committee for at least a while till we,
What does that look like?
I don't like that at all.
it would just be a member of the public on a committee just for input, so.
I mean, Barry, you're opening up, you're setting a precedence that I don't think that we should start doing that. I can find, if you're worried about it, I'll get you a road builder who actually bids roads but I think that me and Phil can handle that, or that committee.
Well, I'm just
And-
looking at the roads, when he's worked here 40 years ago, what culverts were in, or what.
That's why we have an engineer, that we have plenty of experience there. It's my opinion that we shouldn't start because I'm not saying John would be bad there. I don't believe we need him there. But if we start doing this, we could have, again, people from the public on planning and zoning or any of this, I mean, we have those, I think me and Phil can handle this.
Well, I'm not doubting you can handle it, and your two board members will bring that back to the board, what your recommendation. I just thought the knowledge that he has and the history on our roads would be valuable for that committee.
Well-
And I don't know, maybe he doesn't need to be on the committee itself, but I think if you turn your eye on that knowledge, you'd be silly.
Well, he's
Turn
right
your back
there
on him.
if we do have a question, if somebody's got a question. But we do have qualified people on highway. All three of the people in charge there at the committee are very good at what they do.
Well, there's no question about that. I did leave a message with Jim and let him know that's what I was thinking, and talk to Jonah also. I just think it would be valuable for us to, in transition to, I mean, when you hire new employees on big positions, you transition people out. And I don't think this board has any problem saying no to someone else coming in who wants to be on Human Service Committee. I mean, if they want to go to that meeting, they're allowed to, and anyone can go to any of these meetings
Right.
that they want to. So.
And John could sure go to the meeting, but I don't.
Well, I don't think John's going to go to a meeting if he's not asked to come.
Well,
Because I mean, I wouldn't continue on meetings unless I was asked to come, so.
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna not do things or make things, but I think his knowledge on there would help, and maybe you just wanna invite him for the first couple and see if, but I guess I'll leave that up to the highway committee if they think it's valuable. I thought it would be valuable I mean, if I was on highway committee, I'd certainly want his knowledge there, but.
I think the highway committee, we can leave it up to the highway committee and see if they would like to reach out to him. And then we can go from there and then see how that pans out. Is that,
Yeah.
I don't care if he comes to the meetings. I mean,
I don't
that's
care
fine.
if he comes to the meeting.
His value is, yeah, I agree.
but I agree with Barry. If he's not invited, he probably is not going to come, or if he's not asked a question or something, that would be, he probably won't come, but yeah. I'm not sure we should appoint him.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the appropriate would be invite as include a
Yeah.
non-per diem,
Yeah.
or, the question would be, if you want a per diem or non-per diem. I would say we at least give him the option to invite him as a non-per diem consultant, for input there. But that'd be my opinion. I can.
I would reach out to him and invite him to the next meeting and see if he wants to come. I
Why
mean,
don't you do that and see what his interest is at the next highway
so
committee?
are we paying him then to come to
Well,
the meeting?
I
That
mean,
sets
you could,
another
but
precedent.
Right now, you would not. I mean, if it would have to be board approved if you're going to. So if you want to talk to him about it and see what the thoughts are, and I'm sure he would be happy to come to meetings without being paid. I don't think.
So so he was on a lot of committees. Would highway be the only committee he's going to come? Because like I've been appointed to the incinerator over there. I don't know anything about incinerators. I'm going to get a tour and up to speed. Should he come to that too then?
Well.
Or can I just call him and say,
Larry-
John, what's
Larry-
going on
yeah,
here?
I think those are just, you call, and he's certainly willing to give input. John's been on that for 2 years, and you learn those as you go. He has, the expertise that he has is roads. I mean, he still does paid consulting for numerous townships and counties,
Yeah.
so.
I think the point of the highway is just for his
50 years
Yeah.
of knowledge.
But I think maybe bring it back to your committee and see what they think.
I will invite him to our next meeting and we'll see what happens if he's
I'll
there.
talk to him too and see what.
Yeah,
Did anyone get to his
Yep.
farewell party?
Yep,
I had a game, so
I had planned on it, but the weather
it was
had
blizzardy.
other
I dropped off a
plans.
bottle of Jubilee for him, and
I got him a Jubilee bottle too. It's easy for me to go to those because it was in the city and you guys, I don't live out in the tundra of.
actually, I was in Sabika at girls'
Oh,
basketball games.
geez.
Yikes.
That was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good though. There was a good turnout and there's a lot of people there. It was a good, enjoyable time, yeah. Ron Zeman showed up, so.
Didn't speak?
Not to everybody, no. Does anybody else have any other appointments? All right, so let's move on. Carrie, our county administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to make note, I saw this in social media and I thought it was noteworthy. I think it was in like the DL Buzz or one of those. And it spoke to our DMV and the great service that they got there. And that was within the last week or so. So shout out to the DMV office. I thought it was noteworthy. Second item that I have under my report is myself and two of the commissioners, as well as Clearwater County and Monoman County, met with our potential lobbyist just to ask a lot of questions about going forward and what we may or may not want to do with any potential bills that might come through with regards to any land transfer. And I just got a message, I think it was probably yesterday, from him, because really we were looking at the price and the original proposal that we had gotten and the price for that. And I know the other two counties had indicated that they were quite concerned and sticker shock with that. So the proposal that I got in writing or email, just yesterday, the cost had lowered significantly. I believe originally it was, I want to say $24,000 a month. It was a lot.
With all services.
With all services, yeah. So the proposal at this point is $5,000, which potentially could be a cost sharing with the other counties. So it's significant.
Per month or per?
Yes,
Per month for from January to May?
from whenever we would implement the
Okay.
proposal, yeah.
So is that an AMC thing, or is that
No.
a Becker County lobbyist?
It's a private.
It would be a Becker County lobbyist.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that through the AMC or?
AMC is statewide, and statewide, it probably wouldn't be, there would be individuals, I'm sure, in the metro area that wouldn't support our.
Well, sure, but we have what I learned down in December was we have the AMC, we have the Metro, and we have the Greater Minnesota AMC. We met, I went to the
AMC
meeting.
can't have a platform
Yep, correct.
to oppose it, because they would not get full support. Or it would just be controversial enough that they're not they won't take a full-blown, so they're not going to go and lobby, speak against it at the Senate or speak against it now they may do stuff behind closed door and showing that the pros and cons or, the negative effects, but, so they will not. Even MRC has sent language now, or AMC gave us language, so they're going to somewhat oppose the transfer without due diligence. So,
Correct.
without meeting all these things and explaining how you'd address all the issues that we brought up, but they're not going to oppose it just to oppose it. And
So this would be another level of just us and a couple other counties that?
yes,
pay
this would be a private one, and counties,
for a specific item.
like, there's lots of counties that have their own lobbyists. Of course, the big metros have numerous lobbyists on different ends. Clay County has lobbyists for trying to get grant monies and lobby for specific items. We usually don't hire lobbyists, but MRC works with AMC, but they're Minnesota rural counties, so they have different, they can go after more rural issues. So their stance on it will be a little bit more, they will actually oppose it, but not, they're aligned with AMC too, so they're not going to be going to the tables and speaking at the hearings.
I think Monoman County also said that they have a lobbyist for like their healthcare. So I mean, every
They do.
county, depending on the county's needs and what maybe could potentially come to the legislative session that year, would depend on, what they would need a lobbyist for. This particular really has the potential to affect Becker County. So we've taken the stance of, looking at a lobbyist to really make sure that we're as
So
well
that-
informed and speak on our behalf.
Especially when session is active, things can, that bill was introduced and nobody was even aware of it. I mean, you have senators, Steve Green said, I'm a tribal member, I'm a senator, and I'm not aware of it till it comes to my committee. So things can pop up just like that. and this, having someone there looking for these specific items is what we did initially.
Yeah, I think last year we had, what, a 2-day
I think it was about 2
notice
days,
before, from the
if
time it
that,
was
if
introduced
that,
to it was
if that,
voted.
it was very quick.
And they were gonna talk to all the lawmakers, these lobbyists, to make sure they understand how important it is to Becker County not to lose this property. And what, was it Monoman that said they would pay $1,000 a month? Was that Monoman? Remember?
They had all committed to be a part of this, but again, when we got the initial proposal, I think they were really second guessing that because of how high it was, but.
Right, but I
I do
mean,
think
that's
that-
last
Oh, this
meeting.
last one, yes, yes.
Well, yeah, it was Monoman that, they said they could afford $1,000 a month, so if Clearwater was to do that, and then we picked up the other part, you know, it is a lot of money, but it's also a very important issue that we really need to stay on top of, and these guys will do that.
I did get a call yesterday from a reporter from the Star Trib asking about, they were just calling random people, I think, but called me and talked to me about the hopes of a new presidential election. And but I ended up talking about the tribal concerns that we have, and she stated that she would like to come up and actually look at some of the properties, and she was very supportive of my agenda was, why we think this is important, why this should not transfer. So she'd like to come up and write a story on that later on. And I said, well, I'd take Mitch and Steve with, and we could go out on sites and show specific things. And she wants to see those signs that say no trespassing and no admittance. And she wants to help the Metro people to try to understand why this is such a big deal to us and why this shouldn't go through. And I think she'd write it in that effect. So anyway, hopefully we can get some exposure explaining that, you know, these things, the negative things will happen if this happens. So, and I don't think we have to worry about it so much this session with the split house, but it's ongoing.
There is a bill introduced for Red Lake transfer, which I
Yes,
think is a little different.
That's different. It's a $25 million payment to DNR for them to start buying private land to donate back to the tribe.
Yep.
And that, I just think that's ridiculous. You buy private land on a lake to give to somebody else. But that's another story.
So with this, my intent is to reach out again to Monoman County and Clearwater and get some kind of a finalization of what their commitment to this is. And then it will once I have that, I'll bring that back to
The
board.
concern I have on this lobbyist is, are they going to get to the people that we need to get to? I mean, I think, and that's, someone mentioned that to me. This is I think we look for people that will share our ideas and get them to the people that, the people in the middle of the road, that hopefully the Metro people that,
That's what he talked about.
Yeah. We talked about talking to everybody.
We did ask some of those questions.
But we need to get to those ears and to say, this isn't as simple. And yes, there's things that that have happened in the past that have been, terrible. But we need to show what two wrongs don't make a right. So.
Yeah, he did specifically say actually that there were certain Metro legislators that he was going to reach out to because they were the ones that were likely to maybe be swayed.
Yeah. And he was gonna explain to them how important it is to our landowners and access to their property, and so.
And likely many people from the Metro could be, because they likely own land or recreate up here, so it goes beyond just homeowners up here, but.
Okay.
I also got notice in the last few days that the childcare grant that had been applied for jointly with the city, that we were awarded that, so I would anticipate that Cody will be bringing that back in for acceptance. I believe the dollar amount was $120,000 for that pod concept or expansion of that as well.
Ecumen, I think.
Yeah,
It wasn't having a county pod,
no, Ecumen.
because I don't know that I would, unless it's strictly for infants, support a county pod.
Nope, this was for like off hours.
Yes,
I
thought
think,
it
like,
was,
there was, it was,
it was filling part of those needs, I know that, yeah. But that was the notice came through on that, so I would imagine, again, next board meeting, probably Cody will be bringing that back, so. The next item that I have on my report is, I know that you had asked about the drainage conference and attending that. You had expressed some interest, and I know we hadn't sent a board member, so I was just bringing that up for discussion as far as board direction.
That's a bigger issue here that I'd like to discuss. Yeah, so the AMC ditch conference was February 4th through the 6th down in Alexandria. Barry's on some watersheds. I'm on the Pelican River watershed. Is that we don't have a lot of ditches in our county. I talked to Jim Olson. There are a few, but he was even considering possibly going to it. But it's a bigger issue. When we get stuff from the AMC, are we expected to go to that? Do we not go to that? Is someone going to the legislative session, the
I am going.
collaborative decisions, team success in Sartell on February 20th? The tribal relations, do just the people on that committee go to that, or should we all go to that? I don't know, and I'm trying to get some clarity on that.
I am going to go to the legislative conference.
the legislative conference is really up to you, because we each have our own legislative committee that we're on. Like, I'm on Health and Human Services. I think you're on the
General.
highway.
Oh, yeah.
Highway. So, so I think it's really up to you, and if it works into your schedule.
Yeah.
What they do at those conferences is they set their platform then for the following year. That's what, when you attend the legislative conference in December, it starts in February, like the conversation starts.
The drainage ditch one, I think I told you this on the phone, that our watersheds take our big drainage ditches. I mean, so the county, back in the day, the drainage ditch system was huge. But our biggest ones are in the Buffalo Red and the Wild Rice. And then I don't know if Pelican has some too, but the rest of them are there's no maintenance, there's no, I mean, they're just
There is maintenance, but the watershed does the maintenance.
Outside the watersheds, I'm saying, we don't do any maintenance on any county ditches. I mean, unless it's something special. And then if you do that, because we had a request from one down by area, they wanted to do it, then they realized that would be assessed back to all the current property owners, any maintenance, and then they're like, we don't need it. We don't need this maintenance done. And if you really want to get in deep, then you should do a new, what's the word, not a redetermination, and that takes years because there's only a handful of people doing that, and that's expensive, and nobody is happy about those. And most of them that aren't active are just, they're not where it gets critical is where the farmland gets flooded, and usually now when it's backing up in these low use ones, it's just a higher level in most swamps or I mean, it's not a significant financial burden. Now you get in the watersheds in Buffalo Red and Wild Rice, and where this gets in a lot of, in the state committees, is they're talking about ditches that are actually farmed through, running through fields, and now they're protected waterway, and then you have to have buffers on them. I mean, so we don't have the big issues that a lot of the southern and southern counties do. So I mean, you can choose to get involved in anything you want. I choose, it's not my area I'm going to spend a lot of time in because it doesn't affect our residents so much. So it's whatever's interesting to you and what you feel is important, that's what and as a commissioner, this board will support you attending whichever meetings you go to. Most of the time, the legislative is I mean, we all are welcome to go to legislative, and that's usually in the cities during session. AMC's, the annual meetings in December. There's a there's a fall policy committee that we go to in the fall. I mean, so we usually go to those. Most commissioners go to those. Not all the time. And some go sometimes, so.
Then we have our District 4.
And we have district meetings twice a year also in Fergus, usually in Fergus Falls. But your committees can also meet, if you get real involved, then you'll be called down to meet with, if you're the chairman of a policy committee, you'll be going to the cities quite often to meet with, like I met with the DNR commissioner or the Department of Ag. You know, there's things that pop up that then they want input from commissioners, and as the chair or someone invested or involved, you are called down to have those meetings, and then often sometimes then testify at Senate or House. So get as involved as much as you want, as fast as you want, but the board will support your going to AMC meetings when you choose to.
And I think the other important thing is if you're going to have if more than 3 of us are going to be there, we have to make sure and post it, right?
Post it.
So what I'm hearing here is that as the new commissioner, it's my choice if I think I
correct.
want to do that, if it's sponsored by the AMC.
Well, yeah, and most things sponsored by AMC, the board will, I mean, if you can tie it to your committee that you're on, then you don't even have to, I mean, then that's part of that committee assignment.
Yeah, and I understand what the ditches, we don't have a lot of ditches, the watersheds manage that, the ditches we do have. But when I've went to a lot of these meetings, the peripheral stuff is some of the best benefits, meeting people in case something ever does come up. But
Yes, you want to get involved so you can have those first name base contacts.
correct. So, okay, well, I'll make a decision on the ditch committee then. What about the tribal relations? We got that January 29th and 30th. Is it?
You know, that request,
different?
Carrie's going to bring that up in her report.
you want to should we just go into that now?
No, okay.
Sure.
I cut you off.
No, that's
Go back to what you were
No, that's
talking
okay.
about.
Okay, so in your package you have, and I had communicated with the government relations individual, Richard Hanks Jr. from White Earth, and he specifically had indicated or requested, this is a training, the agenda is in the packet, specifically his initial request was for the invite to go out to the sheriff and one board member. I did speak to Sheriff Glander and he's not able to attend. So from what I gather, we potentially would have 2 spots to send to this particular training. And so I guess it's out there as far as if there is availability for 2 board members or not.
Well, and this is another case. If you choose not to go, you don't have to go. This is nothing that's even expected for a commissioner to go to.
No.
This is a request from the tribe if someone's interested in tribal and state relations training. I mean, we're neither of those. I did go online and on YouTube, one of the individuals, the main speaker there is a professor at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I listened to some of his talks. So if you can't make it, I encourage you can go hear what his message would be. Unfortunately, I have prior commitments on both days, so I can't attend.
So do I.
So
Yeah, I'm unavailable too.
I'm going, but because I'm a state employee. So I'm going
yeah.
on behalf of this.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Well,
Yeah, you're.
I'm going because of my other job, but yes. I can bring back.
It looks like a short day, and
It's 2 days.
oh yeah,
It's 2
I mean,
days, yeah.
the second day is shorter than the first anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're interested,
I don't think so.
if any of you are
It
interested
ends
in
at
going,
5. Second one ends at 5.
Well, I got other
First one
committee
ends
meetings.
at
Starts
7.
at
How do I
7.
prioritize?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I really don't know much about the situation that kind of exploded last summer, so I'd like to get up to speed a little bit more, and that seemed like an opportunity to do it. So,
I don't think this will have anything.
I don't think it'll talk
No.
about that at all.
okay.
All right, Carrie, go ahead and go.
Okay. The next training that's
Can we just back up? If
Oh, sorry.
I think if someone's willing to do that, I'd make a motion to authorize that or are you on a committee you can relate that to?
I will not take per diem for this just because I'm going for.
As the state representative. If
Yep,
anyone,
for my state employment.
okay. So we don't need
No.
okay.
No.
If anyone else was wanting to go, put a per diem on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm not hearing that, so. All right, so the next item in your packet also is an additional potential training, is whether or not it's of interest or not. Just put it in here for information. So this is the Watershed District Manager Orientation Refresher Training. that there is a session in Detroit Lakes. I believe it's in February, 25th of
I
February.
would like to go to the Detroit Lakes one, so.
Okay.
I went to that before, when it was on the watershed, but I found it valuable too. Yeah, I'd probably go to it too.
Okay.
So that would be just two of
The
us.
two of you. Okay. Thank you. So the last item that actually second to the last before I get to my last item, I'll skip over here. With the committee, we're bringing this back. I modified the agenda just to clarify a few of these committees. The labor negotiation committee, in the past, I believe we had chair and vice chair. So again, just wanting to clarify.
I don't think it had ever been
Yeah,
chair and vice chair. I think it had always
Right.
been John and Dave.
yeah, which ended up being chair and vice chair last time. And Barry had suggested that we have names on there so we know who it is.
So it's not attached to seats, is what you're saying?
It is nice to have the chair and vice chair, because then there's meeting, and, after finance, we met a lot on negotiation stuff, it was easy, but it's not necessarily necessary. But I'm on it, so I'll stay on it.
Let's just, I would like to have just the names rather
Yes.
than the positions.
Correct.
And then
Okay.
we can change them annually
Yeah.
if needed. And
Yeah.
if there's a year where you want to roll that, then you
Yeah.
can do that. So just put the chair, this current chair and vice chair's names on it and
Okay,
go from there.
That's okay.
okay.
So Meyer and Jepson.
Yeah, do we need a motion for, we can get a motion at the end here.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing was just the West Central Initiative Economic Development District Board.
Yeah,
I was on it, but we didn't, I had mentioned this at the last meeting, and then I don't think we.
I believe I
He said
mentioned,
he's
I'm not
going to.
100% sure that Eric and I were switching, would recommend to switch the RAC committee for the West Central Initiative. If that's okay with everybody, I'm willing to do that. And I don't know if I had mentioned that the other time or not, I don't.
Well, you guys tell us what you want then. And
Yeah,
So you're on
I just-
RAC and you're on
West Central, yeah.
Yeah, and West Central is the same, that meeting is the same day and time as West Central Regional Juvenile Detention Center or EDA. So when it's in the morning, so I would have to miss,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's.
Change that then.
Yep.
So for clarification, West Central should be Meyer and Bearberg, is that correct?
West Central
Yeah.
Initiative. Yep.
Initiative, yes.
Yep. And then the last one, Carrie, go ahead.
The salary review for elected officials.
And that traditionally has been the chair and vice.
Just list the, well,
Well,
it's been
sort of.
appointed, but certainly can put the chair and vice chair's name this year, and next year you adjust it again.
Okay.
So Meyer and Jepson there, is what you're saying?
Yeah, usually I think we just nominate or appoint two during,
Yeah. So do we have is there anything else since we have the sheet? Are there any other issues, corrections, or modifications that anybody has?
I don't think so.
and just to be clear, it says on there that all,
Any and all board members can serve as alternates, members as needed. Yeah.
if applicable.
So if you can't go, you should try to get someone else to go to cover for you? Is that what,
Yeah.
that's, okay.
Do we have a motion to approve the corrections to the committee list for 2025?
I'll do that. I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any other,
I'll second, the changes, not the corrections.
or
Nothing's wrong.
changes, yeah, yeah. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, carried.
So the last item I have is hoping to have a discussion with this board to get some direction with regards to the Pelican River watershed, their storage building out by Dutton Locks. And I believe, is it Tara? Do you want to come up here? I was asked to invite
Peggy, can we pull up the,
Tara in case she wanted to provide any input. Morning.
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 So in researching the history, what I was able to, I believe, decipher was that some time ago, the land is owned by the county. The building was built by Pelican Watershed. And there's some need for additional parking out here as we have been been building this new shelter. And so really this, hoping that the board can have a discussion about how to move forward. As I understood, you have, is it 2 boats and a vehicle parked in this?
We have 2 vehicles and a boat and kayaks and other equipment in that shed. And the history on it is that the watershed district had a state grant that they matched with their funds to purchase this site. I look at the 1967 watershed plan, and it talks about purchasing, this property. So the district, from its inception, was talking about acquiring this property. And as part of that, the board said they didn't want to own land at the time, so they transferred it over to the county. And as part of that, this building was built because we had harvesters. We owned 3 harvesters. This shed was not big enough to house all the harvesters, but we had equipment. I think Steve Skook helped us move a conveyor that had been parked out alongside of the building, so thank you for that. But right now, our board, from what I think, Phil, you were at our last board meeting, we're willing to enter into some sort of, in negotiations about moving off of that site because, I get it. But we also would like to have something more in that county road corridor because that area, we pick up our boat, we do all this monitoring, and we have to drop off our samples at R&B Labs, which is right down the road because we have to be there by 4 o'clock. We can't be, way north of town. It just doesn't work out for us. And the other thing is that, this building has been paid for years as we're also a taxing authority, and we're not looking to rent a facility so much. That's not in our, not interested in that because right now we're paying nothing. But I think we're open to if the county would start thinking about helping us pay for a new facility, that we will not be out on our own, that we're willing to work with you on starting some sort of process and helping us locate another area where we could be somewhere in this area for housing our equipment.
So this is the building we're talking about at Dunlocks. That's the building we're talking about right now. That's the watershed building. This is the current structure, which we just talked about, that we're thinking about gutting that and then just leaving that as a structure.
Nope, the red down.
Oh, right here, yep. So the new structure is right about here, and it looks really nice. I drove out there this weekend. So I was just, being on the RAC committee and the watershed, I was just thinking forward that, it'd be nice to have all this area for future parking. The troll is up here somewhere, so it got a lot of activity last year. Over by Highway 59, the RAC is actually talking to a landowner out over there about possibly getting some additional parking on Highway 59, which looks positive. But with the bowling alley probably going away and new apartments or buildings going in there in the city of Detroit Lakes, this trail gets used a lot already, and I just think that parking is going to be an issue. The watershed doesn't exactly need to be here. I was just thinking futuristically that, we may need that for parking or something else. So that was the impetus for all these things coming together. But finding the watershed a home, that is the issue. A new home.
Terry, you said that did the Pelican River watershed purchase this land from the county or purchase this land?
From a private individual. There was a state grant, and then we provided the match money, the watershed district did. I've got the minutes on that. Mm-hmm. And then I think as part of the deal, it's like, okay, now we get to have our building here.
I'd like to see the minutes on that, because what I've looked at is that was purchased under the assessed value and what we've discovered, and that the county paid for it. So I think if you can show that that Pelican watershed has money into the property, that might alter what I think. But I don't think it's our responsibility to find a place for you guys. I don't know how we would go, and we're going to go look for a place and then ask you, well, will this do? And then, oh, no. So then I think that's your responsibility to find out where you guys want to be. But I think regardless of who owns this and however, I think this property has to be clean. I mean, that building is end of life already. And it.
Well, that's
should
not
be-
quite, we've got some action, there's some people who have, they're still looking for a price, but they would potentially move it off. I know there was one person that called me on the rack that said he had a potential buyer.
So, but we do need we will be needing the space for parking in the future. Now, I don't, unless we can see in the minutes that Pelican put money into this, I don't know how the county could, I don't know how we could financially support building you a new building.
Is this a pole building or what is it?
Yeah.
It is.
30 by 50 approximately.
How long has it been there?
Since
76? 76. Here, it's in your minutes here with the,
So you're talking a 50-year-old pole shed that,
Yeah, well, just in a lot of times you don't see it, but those poles rot off right below the ground. And it's easy to check. So you could see how good or bad it is. And it's just, there's no insulation, it's not finished inside or anything.
No, we didn't need that, just,
it's cold storage.
Dirt
Yeah.
floor.
Dirt floor?
Dirt floor or cement floor?
dirt.
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 So I mean, the value
Not a
is,
lot of value there. And I've not seen one that isn't, I've taken them down and pulled the poles on them.
well, you can shorten the buildings.
You can, but the poles, if it's sitting there like that, they will start to settle. That poles do rot right below the ground. 6 inches below the ground, they don't, but right below the ground is where those poles rot. And that's why I'm against putting money into any pole building. I
So
won't.
Tara, do you have the minutes to see who, because I don't know who owns the building either.
Could
I mean,
you supply those for?
I think we know who owns the building.
Yeah.
But who owned I want to see if Watershed put money in the
I
property.
would like to see that too.
Because that's where what we have found is Watershed did not put any money in the property.
But the county did. You
Yeah.
found when they put that in. And I look at our stuff and I read that we did, so let's go look.
It does say here, Pelican River Water District, November 24th, 1976, resolution to transfer $16,775
But
to
later
Becker
on,
County Treasurer as the water district share of the purchase.
but later on, it shows that it was that the price was $100,000 and it only cost us
Is it 85,000?
considerably less, and that, I thought that money was not used.
No, was it to match a state grant? From the county parks? They had 85,000 back then to do that? I don't know. All I know is I see the resolutions in our minutes, so I'll look.
well, we better compare those with the county minutes then, because it's pretty clear, I mean, from these,
Why would we transfer money?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's just work together. I was hoping we would work together on this and not just say, hey, we're kicking you out of there. We've been there since 1976. And I know we worked on that project because it's in our minutes. And there was
Well, you put up the building.
why were we allowed to put up the building?
Well, we were working in partnership and we didn't have need for that space, I'm sure.
Well, our board was really hoping to work with the county on this, and otherwise we have to also put up money, and we felt that there's some value there for the county to have that area for the parking lot, and we're very open to that transaction. We're,
Tara,
good faith.
what would success look like here? I mean, what,
Well, you were at the last meeting.
Yep.
What was your feeling from the board?
well, no, the board felt that they owned the building and the county needed to buy them out, or we had talked about finding a new space also. But then I heard that, if we just buy you out and you go find your own space, some board members, I mean, we were all over the board.
Right.
There's what I kind of heard at the end of the meeting as I was walking out.
I think maybe what, Carrie, are you looking for? Is there some direction to say, is there a commissioner or two who could sit down with us and we could look at exploring some opportunities here? Or just want to wait till next month to get some more clarification?
I think we need all the information that we both have before we can do anything else.
Yeah, I would suggest that whatever information you have, if you could get that, and we could find a time in between board, and we could review that,
Yeah.
and whatever other additional information Mary may have. I think really the question is the building and how that came to be and the land. But in my cursory review of this, I would say when this was all done, it was a partnership perhaps that was put into place for you to build this building, but I don't think anybody thought to the future once the life of that building was done, then what? I think that's the missing piece.
Tara, have you seen what you came up with, Carrie, here? Has she seen this?
No.
Oh, send that to her.
Yeah, and I'll send you what I have.
It's in the board packets.
Yeah, and this came from Guy Fisher, it looks like, in 2017.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Watershed put money into this, then that's a different story for me.
Me too.
If we owe anything.
When you say put money into, are you talking land or
The
building?
land.
The land.
Put money into the
Okay,
land.
that's what I thought.
As far as the building, I think a 50-year-old pole shed of 30 by 50 is at end of life myself. I don't know that, there's still value there as if you have it, but I imagine it's just, I think the cost of that purchase or to put it up was probably
$5,000.
$5,700.
$700. I think that's depreciated out after 50 years, so.
So I think really what you're saying is the question that is before us is whether or not the watershed put in money for the land.
For the land.
Specifically, correct?
Yes, and
Okay,
if they
thank
did, then I feel we have an obligation to buy that or pay that off to get, to be good partners to get some solution on that. to buy
So
into-
potentially you're saying to pay out their portion and then they have to go find their own new place?
Yes.
Or would we help them with finding, I don't know if the county has, we've talked about several places in the county that, that aren't really conducive to what the watershed needs, either by proximity.
Right, if we can get in that Highway 6
Six, yeah.
area.
And I think the struggle for me with that is we're looking at likely a large chunk of money because we would have to purchase, the land would have to be purchased for us to do that would be a lot of money.
Well, it wouldn't be fair countywide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I don't know I think if, start looking at what would it cost for us to move? I think that's the one thing, because we're a taxing authority too, and now I have to tax, again, the same people you're taxing to pay for our building that has been working for us and will probably continue to work for us. So we're talking about the same set of people here, one way or the other. And
Well, you're not, because you're talking about
That's not-
taxing countywide for something for a group of people that are benefiting.
Within the county, yeah. The watershed district, yeah. As Jim, since you came in, that little lot to the west of the Public Works building, would there be room for in there? Now, that's outdoor storage, it's cold storage, but it's secure.
That's not in her prime area she wants.
But, the testing starts on Floyd Lake, and then it goes down to Detroit Lake, and then down to Melissa Sally. So, drop off at County 6 or at RMB and back up to there. Is that a possibility?
West?
There's a parking lot, a secure parking lot west of,
would we own it, or do we have to be at the mercy of saying you're kicked out again? I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not,
Well,
it's
no, I
just,
see.
yeah.
I hear you.
no. Oh, now we need that space again, and it's just not, let's just see what our records show, but everybody is wanting to do the right thing for the park. There's no question on that, so.
Okay. I think we get the data, we get the information, we see then we go from there.
All right.
So I think we have it here where we show that the 16,775 was we have a resolution. So I think we need to see if that 16,775 was actually transferred.
The reference to the $16,000 came from
Yep.
Well, can you confirm it?
we're gonna
Yep,
Yep.
Because all donations are required to be accepted,
yep.
so we'll need to do more research.
And most
Because
of
it does say that what was thought to be 100,000 ended up only being 65,700. And there is no record that state grant funds were received for this purchase. So it seems like there is a lot of contradicting information between what Pelican River watershed and what our records are. So I think we just really need to clarify that to make
We
sure
need to
that.
clarify that, correct.
The other thing to consider is we are looking at two things, actually. We are looking at building a impound building for the sheriff, and there could be added space on there for a lease. I mean, I'm not talking gift, but a long-term lease to build more space onto that building as we move forward. The other option would be a lease on the transit building that's at the fairgrounds, because there will be extra space on the
That's what we
end of that.
discussed, yep, at the rack was that potential.
Yeah, and that didn't work for us because we had to be kicked out of there for 2 or 3 days, and that does not work with what our equipment is. It would not work.
So the watershed has 2 vehicles, a boat, some kayaks, or some miscellaneous
Other
stuff there
equipment.
too.
Well, I think that would be one of the best solutions, and if there was one stall that couldn't be utilized and boarded off for, I mean, you certainly can move the vehicles out of there for a couple days, and you certainly can move a boat out of there a couple days, and I don't think kayaks are too hard to move out. So I don't know why you wouldn't be able to move out most of your equipment, and if it was one stall needed to be locked continuously, I mean, we could build a wall within a building, easy enough, so. I mean, I don't think you should close the door on that one, because that would be the
Ideal.
ideal
Yeah.
for everyone in most cases, so.
Let's get the rest of the facts and let's just bring it up again and see if we can, let's try to work together here. I think there should be a
Yeah,
reasonable
we're
solution.
very
Yep.
open to that, so, thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
but Tara, I mean, the watershed is not paying a lease right now. So, I mean,
They've had zero, we could look, yeah, good point. We could go back and look at what the appropriate fee would be.
that's not what I
I'm
was
just kidding,
thinking.
I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Tara.
Just would like to monitor the lakes and look at the health, so, yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Chair.
Tara.
Yeah,
That is all I have.
yep.
Yes.
All right, Tiara, human resources, job descriptions.
Good morning, Commissioners. So you have a pretty lengthy packet worth of job descriptions for review. These have all gone to the respective committees, were approved at the committee level, and just bringing them before the board. Please let me know if you have any questions on anything. There were no significant changes, very minor grammatical corrections and things of that sort, no grade changes or anything.
There was no grade changes in any of these?
Not for these, no.
Okay.
I actually read them all.
I looked at all of them too, and I didn't read the details, but I looked at the
Don't
grades, and
blame
I'm
you.
like, well, if they no grade changes and committees support that, I'm willing to move forward as it presented.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do you have a motion? Okay, do you have a second to approve the job descriptions?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Job descriptions are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have, no, you're good, Tara. I do have one comment is about where the job descriptions go. The planning and zoning ones went to the planning and zoning committee, which is fine. They're not really a planning and zoning committee, they're a planning and zoning commission. So maybe in the future, possibly they come to the courthouse. I don't know, because I know the budget comes to the courthouse for planning and zoning. But like I said, it doesn't matter to me, whatever is easiest for people to do. I just want to make it easy for everybody.
Yeah, we typically don't meet outside of
Yeah, that's what I
the
said.
planning commission tour and the planning commission meeting. But again, I mean, if we need to.
Carrie can coordinate it.
Yeah, we can coordinate
Yeah.
that and figure that out, yeah. All right, human services. You guys have been waiting a long time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Has everyone met Dave? Dave is our new behavioral health supervisor.
Hello, Dave.
Over here.
So this morning, we're requesting to pass resolution 01252E to approve a status change for for a current behavioral health case aide position to go from part-time to full-time. A little context, recently, behavioral health unit gained the ability to bill for substance use disorder related services, specific to the comprehensive use assessments and care coordination services provided by staff. These services are billed by this case aide position, and the case aide position is currently 20. Lucy and Dave are both here to answer any specific questions you have.
Well, you came prepared. My specific question is, can you break down how you came up with the $114,758 per year increase in additional billing, or what those look like, and I mean, just where that money comes from? And
yeah, the way we wrote that down was our current LADC, she's a full-time employee, and we figured that we could bill for half of her hours, for half her time that through the week, I guess. And then we have 2 other employees that will be that are full-time, but their duties will be a quarter of their hours, so 25% of their hours will also be billed. For care coordination, the current rate is $11.71 for 15-minute units. That comes out to $46.84 an hour. For chemical use assessments, when we bill medical assistants, we are able to bill $162.24
an hour
for the assessment.
How long is an assessment?
It really depends, an hour to 2 hours.
Okay. So the additional income is just basically what you're charging back per employee then? Is what the reimbursements?
We're billing for their time. Yep. Correct.
So one thing that we talked about in Human Services Committee, Barry, is it's a complicated billing process. There's a system that they have to bill in. And for the LADC and the care coordinator, if it were up to them to do it, because it's so complicated, they would have a difficult time getting it done. Where if we could dedicate this other 12 hours from the case aide, she can go in and do the billing for those services. Correct?
Correct. Yep. Correct.
Well, it just strikes me as, I mean, if this is accurate, it's a no-brainer. I mean, but it's hard to understand. An additional 12 hours gains you $114,000.
Yeah, we've never billed before for comprehensive use assessments and care coordination, so that's something that's brand new for Becker County.
So if you didn't go additional 12 hours, you would still get X amount of dollars if you billed for the part-time person?
So obviously, she's been working the 28 hours for a number of years. She's been attempting to do the billing on top of all of her other assigned duties, and has really been struggling to get all of the billing done on top of her assigned duties. Therefore, of course, it would impact our ability to collect all the revenue that really we should be collecting, because it's services that we're providing.
So it's services we're already providing.
Correct.
Really.
That are just being allowed to be billed for now?
Yep, that we're just now billing for, correct.
So we were allowed to bill before, but now we have the capability. If we do this, we'd have the capability to bill more.
We'd have the manpower.
The manpower to bill, okay.
Correct. And when we estimated about the potential use or potential income that this position could generate, we actually used the care coordination rate, so the lower of the 2A, because we always try to guesstimate at the lowest rate, because we don't want to over guesstimate. So there's potential that we could be even earning more money than this $114,000. This was our low estimate.
Who are we billing? I'm sorry, I don't even know. Insurance or?
So we're billing medical assistants.
MA.
MA.
And that's state, right?
Correct.
State, yes.
Correct.
Yeah, so basically there's money out there to be captured, but we need to have someone bill for it.
So the case aide's not actually doing the work, she's just doing the billing.
Correct.
So my question is, so you've been doing these services and we haven't been able to bill for all these services?
Correct. We just became functionally eligible to bill effective May of last year.
Okay.
So now we're going back and doing all of that past billing that we were eligible to claim for. Correct.
Okay.
Well, it's a no brainer.
The numbers show, yeah.
I think if you didn't do this, we wouldn't lose the full 114, but you wouldn't capture the whole work. So where that dollar amount landed would be, somewhere probably less than half because they have other duties rather than just this part-time. So that's if I'm reading that kind of correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So do I have a motion for 2E?
I'll make a motion to approve 2E.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
A question, is this position going from offering it to a part-time to full-time, or is that outside? Are we just curious if the part-time is taking the full-time position?
Correct, she'll just.
Or do you
bump
have to
up her
open that up?
hours. No, she'll take the 12 hours, additional hours. Because she's been doing the billing, she's been trained to do the billing, she's, like I said, already has been doing some of that billing.
I was just curious if it had to be
Does it have to be posted?
a new position that has to be posted as a full-time position, or is it a part-time? Can we move the part-time to full-time?
That is something that we'll look at to make sure we're in compliance with contracts and such. So I know we've had those issues. It really just depends on how we're wording it, really.
So it may need to be an internal posting.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for that explanation.
Veteran Services, Matt. I know I've said this once before, but glad to see you back.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to be here again. Today I'll be requesting approval of 3 resolutions, 2 to accept donations and 1 to accept the operational grant. So I guess I'll open up to any questions on these that you may have.
Do we have a motion for 2B, for the 100 tokens donated?
I'll make a motion to accept or to approve resolution 2B to accept the donations from Damien Society.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on 2B? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh. 100 tokens from the Damien Society for
Transit.
transit travel. All right.
All right, the second one is a donation from a surviving spouse, Betty Becker, for $250, and her only ask is that it's used for veterans. And we've accepted this for several years and done various things. So it allows us some flexibility to respond to needs of veterans.
Make a motion to approve 2C and accept donation from Betty Bigger of $250.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, carried.
And then the last resolution is a resolution to accept the operational grant from the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. That's a $10,000 grant that helps fund a portion of the county's operational costs. Can be used for various things like outreach, operational needs, veteran software, phone, scanner, printer stuff, and even if we need to, the cost of some of our salaries, since we had recently changed a category of it.
Do we have a motion to approve 2D?
I'll make the motion to approve 2D.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So is this one for transit as well?
No, this is for all operations within the Veteran Service Office. It has to be used for one of 5 things, outreach,
Okay.
help reintegrate.
But how the previous 2 were for transit specifically? How do you make?
No, just the first
one
one.
was.
Just the first one.
The 250 was for.
Okay, so the tokens will only be given out to veterans then to ride the transit. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second for 2D. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt,
you.
before you go, I just wanted to touch base a little bit. For those of us non-service members, I saw Matt one day and I kind of said, well, I'm glad to see you, glad to have you back here. Was it uneventful, or, and and he says, well, if you consider, what was it? What'd you say? Roadside bombs and grenades and landmines, it says uneventful, and we have to, I think
Yeah.
many of us don't realize what harm's way they are in, even in non-combat or non-stressed areas. And I think it's not easy to go over there, and thank you for your service, and we forget how serious this is, sending someone over in those areas and how dangerous it is. Everyday living is dangerous for our people over there. So sincere thank you.
Yep.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt.
Appreciate it.
Let's take a quick 5-minute break.
I had one question I got to go back to on
Yeah.
human services. Remember I asked to pull one thing and we didn't. That respite grant was started on January 1. And it states later in there that you can't charge for anything until this is approved. So have we lost money being we have not approved that grant,
Oh, I didn't think of that.
is what my question was.
Yeah, I didn't. I did see that too.
Because it says right below, you cannot charge or incur expenses before that. So that was my question. And I hope we can
Is
get more
that,
time.
is that before we approve it or before they?
Before both approve. They've already approved it on
That was-
December 28th or December 20th.
December 20th.
But we did not approve it till all things are signed. So if we've done anything from January 1 till now, we will not get reimbursed. So,
If we provided any respite.
right. So that was my question, if we,
And have we provided any respite?
that's non-billable.
Yeah, or have we provided any? Maybe we haven't, maybe.
I mean, that's a possibility.
So that was my question, and I think if we have not been able to recapture that, we are not doing our job
This should have been brought forward
before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year, yeah.
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, let's take a 5-minute
I'm ready.
All right, are you ready? I don't know if we're ready, but, all right, we are ready to resume, if Commissioner Nelson's ready. All right, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. I've got a number of requests for us today.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, the stuff for NRM has been approved already, so we'll just go into the environmental services request. We have 4 capital purchase requests. I'll just go through those and then acceptance of a grant. So the first capital purchase request is to buy a scrap bucket and a grapple that we use on our payloader, and it's called a skeleton bucket. It'd be something that you could load or push and move brush around with. Basically, what we really need it for, though, is to load shingles. And in the past, we currently collect soil separated shingles, and the pile's been growing a lot. And our hope was to have a local contractor take them, and that didn't work out quite the way we planned. And so we'd like to bring in a contractor to come and grind shingles. And if we're able to use our own payloader, it's going to cut down on some of our costs as far as grinding those shingles. It also works well with brush, so that's the first request.
Is that, I'm just curious if that, excuse me. What do you use currently?
We haven't been doing our own shingle grinding currently. The way that you would normally load those, are you either going to use a payloader or
But the payload had a bucket on it.
that's just got a 3-yard bucket on it, which does not have a grapple. And so that,
We don't have a grapple right now.
No, do
No,
not.
they fall out, you just
Yeah.
can't get they're tough to, they're really.
You're talking shingles now.
Yeah,
yes,
Well, I think moving anything around out there
sure,
efficiently, a grapple would be.
it helps in some ways, yes. This is not the exact bucket, this is a more expensive one here. The one we were talking about getting, wasn't able to find a picture of it, but it's a skeleton bucket which would allow some of the debris to fall through. So it is a little less expensive than this one.
So it doesn't have, it's not,
It's not a full.
On the bottom.
It's
not
not
a
a bottom
full
back. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so the bottom of the bucket's not solid?
Have you ever seen from farming a
Rock picker
yeah,
bucket?
yeah.
Why would that be beneficial?
Well, it'll allow
Depending
more
on
of your
what
debris.
If you're pushing brush, so if they're gonna use it for other stuff, then, so whenever you get into that, I have one, and you don't get any dirt, you just get your brush, you know? And so, and they're close enough together, so it'll work for shingles, but it does keep you from getting a bunch of dirt and rocks and stuff if you're moving brush around. Or anything, actually, if you're picking it up and you need to get under it, even when you get down into the bottom of the shingle pile, you'll pick it up and you'll just have shingles, you won't have all the dirt in there. I really like mine. They're nice to keep stuff clean, keep the dirt out of there, so.
I guess, seeing these come in, we're in January, and do you operate your budget differently, your 5-year request than other departments? So this isn't budgeted for, and we're in January, and you're asking for these in January? So it's kind of, I know, so I'm looking at at the request. Your fund is different, a little bit different. You've got a fund balance, but I kind of think we should see kind of that capital plan prior to just coming and asking, for these items like this.
I had asked about that too in finance, like, is this something that would be in a capital plan? But it seems like our capital plan is more for larger, which this is a large purchase in some ways, but.
So when you look at all the requests, you're looking at, over $100,000 for 4 requests, and it strikes me as odd. It's not budgeted for, and we're in January, and we're spending $100,000.
So like maybe these should have been brought forward prior to our budget?
Some of these, you just excuse me, but these items are somewhat project driven. And so some of these are based on changing our operational practices out there, which takes different equipment because you're dealing with different types of products. So part of our goal in the past has been trying to find different ways to handle our waste stream differently. And to do that generally takes more labor or equipment to make that happen. And so in the past, when we started with shingles, we contracted all that out. It's fairly expensive to do that. And hopefully ongoing, we're going to be looking at more separation of those types of waste products and building the capacity to handle some of that internally if we can.
So that shingle pile is getting bigger and bigger, and there was a guy gonna be taking it, and he's not taking it. So now we did that land leveling for the new concrete pile, and so what we wanna do is grind these shingles into that concrete. It makes a better product, less dust, and then we get rid of them, because we're not getting rid of them
We still have
now.
to hire someone to grind them.
We still gotta hire somebody to grind them, but now we can haul them, we can load them and haul them over there, and
So if we didn't get this, then we'd have to ask the person grinding them
Right.
to either grind them and put them in a pile or grind them and haul them to another spot where you want them.
That's correct.
But if they just dumped them in a spot next to you, you could take your regular bucket and pull them over there.
Some of it. So if we contracted this out, in fact, I was just talking to him, it's about $500 an hour just to have them come in and grind. And it's going to be another, $125, $130 an hour for him to have a man in a payloader or something, some way of loading these shingles and moving them. So
Well,
we're able to utilize our own.
and we
makes
still
it-
wanna, the paving guy, what's his name? The guy that agreed to.
Jeremy Howard.
Yeah. So we wanna load him. He's supposed to still be taking some of these. And we don't have a way to load him, and he's, part of the problem, he's not
Without
taking-
grinding, you mean?
Yeah, without grinding, so, but then he's gotta bring a loader and leave it there, and that's becoming a problem, and we're not getting rid of him. If he could just come and get a load.
What does he, I mean, is he taking them as shingles with nails,
Yeah.
in?
So your alternative way of loading these are using an excavator, which,
With a pinch?
yeah, with a grapple. So you can pick them up and load a piece of, or a truck with those. So what he has did is he's dedicated a week or 2 weeks to move shingles, and he'd bring in his own excavator, he loads them, that type of thing. Part of the problem with that is that from his standpoint, he's busy all summer, he never has a chance to dedicate the time and trucks to do it, whereas now, our hope is that if he's got jobs this way and his trucks are going back empty that way, maybe we can load them, and then
What is he doing with them?
he grinds them and uses them as part of his asphalt.
He takes out his own
He's
nails
got his
and
own grinder.
Magnet?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, that has some,
Yeah, we've looked at it different ways, and that's something like that grapple, even for brush, for a lot of different stuff, even wash machines, I mean, you can move a lot of material with that grapple.
we're not going to need another payloader now.
No.
No,
Okay, just checking.
not yet.
Oh, don't.
Do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the grapple?
I just want to clarify, and I know I clarified this in finance, but I just want to clarify it today. There is room in your budget for this, so that it's not a budgeted item, but you have the funds in your budget to pay for it.
We do.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to purchase the grapple.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Could I just have the amount of what, the purchase amount
20,
in the motion?
25,300.
oh yeah, it's 20,5350, right?
Yeah,
Could we, is that okay to add that to the motion?
include the price in the motion.
Sure. All right, Steve.
Second item is purchasing radios. We're out at the transfer station, also with NRM, Parks and Rec, Basically, what we'd like to do is get enough radios so that, and radios that work, that in the case of an emergency in the county, if you have a natural disaster or something, you can coordinate that with the sheriff's department. That's been an ongoing goal we've had for a number of years. Earlier last year, we purchased new radios because the ones that we had out there were obsolete and you couldn't get parts for them anymore. And the company we bought them from had assured us that these would tie in. Well, they didn't really work. The signal wasn't good enough. It didn't go into into buildings and stuff on the campus out there. So I talked to Shane Richards, and he had a grant that he applied for close to $50,000 to purchase armor radios. Now, he's got the armor system set up in the county, so now when we purchase these, he's got a dedicated channel for solid waste or for natural resources or Parks and Rec. He's got it all set up already, so this would help meet that. And so what I'd like to do is to take and buy these radios, and we'll turn back in the other ones. We'll get a rebate for the ones that we bought, or a portion of that. And that a county pocket cost. So the total, I think there's like 21 radios, 19 radios that we'd be buying, 19 radios, 20 radios that we'd be buying. It's $57,493.28. That's going to be paid from the grant and then also from the refund.
Which grant is this coming from?
That's the grant that Shane did through the sheriff's department. The state had that fund. I don't know, was it whatever amount it was?
It's not the grant the $900,000 grant.
No.
It's a radio grant?
It's for no other purpose, it's a separate radio grant.
And the sheriff's department doesn't need those radios at this time?
No,
apparently not.
They're the ones that approached us.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just making sure that we're not going to be asking for that other grant money to cover radios in the
sheriff's department?
In the sheriff's department, are we?
I haven't heard that.
Well, I can support this if we're not buying radios out of other grant fund to the state grant. The public safety grant. If we're buying radios at the sheriff's office, then we should be using this grant for that instead of using taxpayer dollars, or using general funds or the other grant. So I'll make a motion to approve as long as the radio grant money is not being needed for radios for the sheriff's department.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second, and do we want to include the amount that will cost the county?
The total amount of $57,493.28, including the funding sources listed as listed.
All right.
Excuse me, do you want me to verify that and bring that back, or just?
I think just verify it with Carrie, let Carrie know that it's verified, and then move forward. I don't need to, if it's verified, just go ahead and do it.
Okay, sounds good.
So we have a motion
If it's not, if they need it, then we bring it back to sheriff maybe.
Yep.
That's fine.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Barry, explain to me why what you said was important.
I don't know if the sheriff's department needs radios, we have, and if they use general dollars rather than general levy dollars, then I wouldn't support this. I think then this grant should pay for those and not pay out of our general fund money. There's also a grant that the sheriff got of $900,000 that we have many things we want to spend it on. So I just don't think this is as important to have radios for out at environmental to spend that $47,000 worth of grant money on that.
As it is to have them for the sheriff's department.
Right.
If they need it.
But if they have no need for it and they've got this grant money and this would help for natural disaster. I mean, obviously it's better, but if they plan on buying radios, then I think I'd rather not spend the grant money on that and not approve.
And I believe we just, in the last 3-4 months, didn't we approve radios for the sheriff's department?
I thought so.
We approved them for the jail, which would be through the sheriff's department.
I thought it was for the whole. Well, we'll verify. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're good at receiving grants, so hopefully this was an emergency preparedness grant that we can expand on our,
Steve, are these, would your radios in an emergency, would they interact with the sheriff's department?
They can, he can change the settings.
yeah, Armor is the state, statewide.
So the real difference was the signal strength or length of the signal. Or the ones out there now, if somebody's in the pay station, they couldn't talk to somebody necessarily consistently with somebody in a different building. Where these other radios through the Armor system are much better. You can talk to anybody in the county.
And I think it's
State.
important to note too, when we talked about these radios, is that just as Steve had indicated, you can talk across departments. There's some type of a disaster, but you could also channel it so that you have outside entities or other partners outside of the county so that everybody can communicate.
The state put the Armor system in 10 years ago, give or take, 5, I don't know. There's actually a tower right across from my driveway. It's a state Armor tower. So they've put up their own towers in a lot of cases too. It's a statewide emergency system, and all state agencies are on it, and counties are all moving to that, so you can communicate across agencies. So we've moved to it a long time ago. But.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? All right, so with that, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries.
The third item is a concrete pulverizer attachment. This would be an attachment that you put on an excavator and it's able to break up large chunks of concrete into small ones so you can take out the rebar. Currently, Becker County gets a lot of waste concrete that has a lot of rebar in it because most contractors that are doing excavating and taking down buildings, they don't want to mess with that. So they bring it to us. So the concrete that we get, that we actually have, that we contract out to have broken up into smaller, or into crushed concrete, has a lot of this steel in it. And it's more expensive, obviously, to crush that than it would be if you didn't have it in it. And this last year, we got particularly a large amount of this. And what we'd like to do is to buy this attachment that we could put on our excavator in the wintertime when there's probably more hours of staff time, that we could put somebody on there working on this. Just breaking up that concrete and taking out the steel, then it preps it so that when we do bring in a concrete crushing company, you get a better pricing on it as far as your cost per cubic yard or ton when you process it. And also would serve as a good training program because right now we use an excavator to load our transfer trailers. And the people we hire aren't necessarily skilled machine operators, but this would be a way to get them trained how to run an excavator with a boom. And so it's just a lot smoother for them when they do start loading trailers if we move them into that position. Does anybody have any question?
It's about $3 a ton to have them take it out of there, and we do have free time in the winter now. There is free time to do it, and then we get the iron out of it too, and there is quite a bit of iron comes out of it. So some guys have their own muncher, they call it. Everybody brings in it. Nobody's got their own grinder. They always bring in a grinder to do the concrete, but some guys got their own. If you've got free time to do it, and in the wintertime, we do have free time for these guys, and we have the excavator, so.
I'll move to approve the purchase of the concrete pulverizer attachment for $29,750.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? I do have one question, Steve.
Sure.
So when you are able to take the rebar out, now do you sell that rebar?
We do.
So you can sell, so that
Sure.
will generate more money that way instead of just them taking it all?
Correct.
Okay.
So you're selling the steel, but then you're also getting a better price when you do crush it.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
The third grapple is a sorting grapple. We use a mini excavator now to sort and load our waste transfer trailers in our transfer station. And the guys that are doing this, they've got a lot better at handling or using that grapple to sort. So this last year, they sorted, I believe, it was like 100 tons of material out of waste that's coming into the transfer station, which we sell scrap metal. We move demo over to the demo landfill rather than sending it to to a landfill like Fargo or Grand Forks. And that grapple that we have is getting wore out. It's been at it for a year and a half, maybe, that they've really been using it extensively for that.
How long have they been using it?
Close to a couple of years they've been using it.
Wore out in 2 years?
Well, what it does is when they're beating on it, that you get cracks and stuff if you look at the grapple itself. So this part in here, you're going to get some cracks, which you got to repair, and that's our means of packing. So we really don't have any alternatives. What we'd like to do is buy a different grapple. It's not, it'd be this type of a grapple, so that when we switch them out, we can take the one that's wore down somewhat and repair it, and then just rotate them going into the future. So we do have a mechanic now that has the capacity to make repairs to them, and he can do the welding and necessary plating and that type of thing.
So this is to purchase a grapple, so you always have one in working order.
We would, correct.
So how long, let's just say, for example, let's say he has to fix it and we don't have one. How long would be unable to use the grapple?
Well, you'd wind up taking out parts. It would be a while, because your alternative then is to use either
Okay.
a large excavator, which that large excavator does not work very well in our transfer station, so you'd be using basically a backhoe just to pack it and use your payloader, or that backhoe to load trailers.
It's used every day.
Every day, yeah.
It's
Christmas?
not on Christmas.
Well,
364 days a year then.
Thanksgiving? Easter?
I don't know if we got used yesterday.
300.
Yesterday, probably not.
You're
Well,
really gonna do the
my,
math.
my question is if the one you're using is only 2 years old, I mean, that just doesn't seem like it's wearing well.
So this one we're looking at buying is a different grapple. It's more of an industrial one used in the waste industry than the original one that we got.
Okay.
So the one that came with it was a Cat.
Was lighter?
I'm assuming it is. No, I don't have all the specs,
Well,
but I'm sure it is.
If we're purchasing $23,000 grapple every 2 years, something's wrong, is what I'm kind of
Yeah,
getting.
no, I get what you're saying. So the hope is that we don't have to buy any more of them. You know, we can rotate them and
And repair them.
repair them and that type of thing. So they do get a lot of hours. They get, it's 1,000,
Well,
1,500
hopefully
hours a year.
this one works. This one works, and they don't have to. I mean, I don't like having spare
Right.
buckets just because one breaks down. But give this a whirl. Hopefully, this one is better, and then when hopefully, and anyway, motion to approve. 23.
25, 250. We have a second for the sorting grapple.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
The last item is accepting Greater Minnesota Waste Reduction, Reuse, Recycling, and Composting Grant that we applied for earlier this year. Last year, we applied and asked for a Green Corps member to come here. Ari DeVries is her name, so she started working here probably August, September, and she'll be here for close to a year. And the reason she came here was to get us started on a source separated organics program. And so as part of that, she applied for this grant to buy equipment that will allow us to move forward in that direction. So this grant is going to be used to purchase some roll-offs, containers, pay for some collection costs, just a whole bunch of different things like that. So then once we get it started, she's going to be reaching out to businesses, and we'll also have some public drop sites where people, if they want to bring just organics, they can put them in there. We'll collect those using our trucks, bring them to the transfer station, load them into roll-offs, and then once they'll roll off, and we're going to mix in some wood waste with it. Once there's enough of that in there that we have a semi-load, we'd ship it to a facility where they can compost it, where they're permitted to do that.
Compost, what are organics? What are you talking about?
So like food waste,
Okay.
or it can include paper products, soiled napkins, that.
So, I mean, we already got paper products at our blue bin recycle sites.
Yeah, this would be more like the soiled stuff. If you have a napkin that people are eating, lunchrooms,
Pizza boxes.
pizza boxes, stuff
Paper
that's
plates.
soiled that
Cardboard.
that does not the people that are buying
You can't
paper,
have soiled food product, cardboard in recycling.
and so this would be the alternative.
This will be going to Central Market, to Walmart,
So-
to schools for all their,
Businesses, these aren't going to be sitting out at the blue bin sites. I worry about the smell and, I mean, some of them would be okay, but some of them would not be okay.
So if we did this, we would put it only at the really high-volume blue bin
Okay.
sites. I would not advocate putting this out there otherwise. And they're going to have to be serviced once a week, so it'd be basically a service, I think, that we would start around Detroit Lakes where your population centers and just leave it at that.
And then bring it back, mix it with wood chips?
They do. So when they compost it, they have to mix in wood chips or yard waste site with that to compost it, so it gets enough.
you gotta do it
and
properly, you gotta heat it, or otherwise you don't kill off the weeds and the,
Yep.
and the disease.
Pathogens and stuff.
And the final product is what? Dirt?
Compost, black
Compost.
compost. The issue I have is the hauling it away. I mean, the trucking away, I don't know.
So legally, you can't just collect food waste and compost it on site without having or building a permitted facility. There's certain things you have to do, like you were referencing earlier, that the compost itself, when you initially get into it, it's got to heat up and you got to be able to record that. You have to have thermometers. There's quite a few things that go in with that if you were to develop a facility. So this would allow us to get going on this and see if it works. If it doesn't work sometime in the future, you just quit doing it because it doesn't make sense to do it. But our hope is that this does grow and we start getting more source-separate organics. Then sometime in the future, if we get enough of it, or there's enough interest regionally where you develop a much closer facility, then you do that here or in this region nearby. So that way then you'd have less food waste going into your regular landfills.
What are the requirements of this grant for longevity of keeping in the program?
Like 6 months, a year, something like that. It's not real long.
Because, I mean, if you accept this grant, the county will be obligated to put about 103,000 into it.
That's county money?
That'd be fund money
That's
from.
in-kind.
That'd be
mostly.
fund money from the,
Where is it hauled to as a final?
So this would be going down to
Hoffman.
Hoffman. There's Pope Douglas is a regional facility down there where they built a facility where that's what they do. So they collect all the organics from Otter Tail, Douglas County, Polk County, number.
So is that our job to get it down there with a
Yep,
grant?
us. No, we're not.
Or they would come and pick it up?
No, we would haul it down there using our.
I agree with you, the transportation costs.
it's part of the fee structure that's in that, what he's,
But what you've
what
got
he
to
showed what the grant would be.
think about it, on the collection side, we're going to have some costs we're going to incur. If you didn't collect it and do this, you're going to have a cost associated with moving it to a landfill irregardless. It's kind of offset.
So when
So
you,
you're getting rid of it no matter what.
You are.
Whether you're getting rid of it for organics or you're hauling it to,
To a landfill.
so Steve, when you said in-kind, what in-kind are you?
There's,
My time or staff time?
Staff time, okay,
Yes.
mainly, okay.
if you looked at the breakdown, there was all kinds of staff
Yeah.
hours in there.
That's, I just wanted him to
so we're not taking
say that.
$100,000
No,
of levied dollars.
No,
For
it would be our own.
in-kind.
A lot of it would be truck
Yeah.
driver time, that type of thing, loading.
so do we have a motion to approve 2F?
Well, I mean, I do have some concerns about the value versus, I mean, I just look, we compost everything, just throw it in the field, but it's not that much product. If everyone could just have their own spot, but you're looking at businesses now, I mean.
That's correct. So one of our missions.
Did you do a survey before to see how much there is out there that's?
So there had been a number of grants that had been given to counties around us as pilot projects to help determine how much of this you could actually pull out of the waste stream. And Otter Tail had one, Pope Douglas had them, I think Hubbard was part of it. And just from what I've heard, they said you might be able to pull it up to like 10% of your total waste stream out of garbage once you maximize it. So it doesn't seem like a large number, but then when you start talking, our waste stream is about 23,000 tons a year. That actually is a big number.
I wonder
And we were
though,
able to, able to move forward. They found out it doesn't work to do curbside, and so we're picking out the parts that do work in those counties that have did these pilot projects. That's our goal.
And I know one of the things you had said is this Green Corps member was going to, one of her duties is going to be to market this program. But what I would like to know, just to make sure that by accepting this grant, we're not saying that if 6 months from now it's not working, but we're going to have to, because of this grant, do it another 6 months or a year or whatever. I think that is maybe something we should make sure we know, like we know for sure when we're making it, like what is the grant requirement that we have to provide the service for how long?
Commissioner, I guess in response to that question, that this size of a change when you're dealing with things, it's something, it's going to take a year or 2 years just to try to get it going. Well, I mean, it's not a change that you can change the public habit immediately.
Yep.
So what we do is we target the places of business, which would include schools or grocery stores, nursing homes, those types of, or restaurants that generate a lot of organics. We would know fairly early on the amount of interest. In fact, we've been reaching out to them already. As far as in the past, a number of them have expressed interest in this. Now it's a matter of actually putting it into practice and seeing if we can pull this off, which I think we can. I think it makes sense to do that because the cost of garbage disposal or solid waste disposal just keeps going up. This will give you some way of having some handle on controlling our own costs going into the future.
So in these businesses, how often would you collect?
It would be weekly.
Weekly? Okay.
Steve, what additional equipment, like let's say this doesn't work, that's what I'm thinking. I want it to work, but let's say it doesn't. What additional equipment will we have to purchase on hand and would be sitting out there unused if this transpired and then quit?
So initially what we're going to do is we're going to buy some roll-offs, which
So we could reuse those in another way.
those can be repurposed. You're going to have to buy an attachment.
Concrete blocks,
Concrete blocks.
15,750 worth of interlocking concrete blocks.
Those are pretty generic. You can use those for just about anything. Probably the only thing I can think of that you might not be able to repurpose for other things is there's an attachment that's going to have to go on the front of the truck, which you use to load your front load trucks. So it's like a small dumpster that has a cart tipper on it. That's probably that's on there, but that would be probably the only thing I can think of. The rest of the stuff, you might.
Is there a cost to pick that up to the people getting rid of it?
We have not set that yet. If I would think to get it going, you probably would not charge, or if you did, it would be minimal. But I think that's something that as you establish what those costs are, then you'd have to have a conversation about how you want to fund that going into the future.
So we're supplying the businesses or the schools with the dumpsters at this time?
There would be Becker County dumpsters.
And I see pails for those.
Yeah, correct.
Why would we buy pails for is that just household pails?
No, this would be more for schools, or if it was for households, you could buy them and give them to them, but they'd be with grant funds. And we did it.
Yeah, I see that they're included in there, but I don't know why we use, for individuals, we have an ice cream pail and we throw it out when full, so. I don't know.
The only thing is that I just want to clarify that there is no requirement with this grant for us to
Pay it
continue.
back?
Yeah, or for us to say, this is a startup grant, you started up, but then we're committed to it for, however long.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
This type of grant, we've got them in the past, and there might be, I don't remember exactly, but it's like a 2-year reporting, or a year reporting requirement. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years, but then after that, it's done. once you've bought it and you've made,
Is this similar to when we did the bale wrap for
that
farmer? I mean,
actually-
that's been several years ago, but
Yeah,
Oh, you mean the
was that a grant? Was that a
plastic
grant? Yeah.
recycling?
yeah, we didn't actually get a grant for that, but
Oh,
we've bought some equipment in the past. The mini excavator we were talking about sorting equipment with, that was purchased with grant funds like this. Same thing with expansion to some of our Murphy equipment,
Steve, how many dollars is the grant?
178,000.
178.
170.
It's on the resolution.
Yeah.
178, 96, 60.
Where is it?
It's on.
Well, I
page
have
138.
one more question. There's no new employees. That's the Green Corps person that's kind of running this program at this time.
So for the most part, it's going to be using our own truck drivers. It's
So
basically.
we have the capacity to do this without
was my question.
increasing hours or vehicle or trucks.
That's correct, as of right.
So the only equipment we need are what's listed in the grant, the roll-offs, the buckets, the,
Concrete.
okay.
So let's say after a year or 2 years even, we're losing money on this. But we have to fund it ourselves now. What is what's your feeling on that? I mean, I don't even know my question.
Some of that depends on,
How would we handle it?
How would we handle that? Yeah.
so, as a county, depending on how, from a policy standpoint, how we want to come up with a revenue stream to cover our costs, that's what you'd look at. Right now, we do charge businesses for providing services as far as recycling.
Yeah.
And you could look at it like that, because then by that time, you're going to have a better handle on what your actual costs are.
And that is a concern of mine.
Sure.
Right now, we charge for cardboard dump to pick up. Now we can charge for another weekly pickup.
Well,
As a business owner, I don't know if it'd be worth my time to do that.
There's different
Worth my
ways of
money.
looking at it.
I like the idea, I just don't know if I want to pay for that.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure,
I mean, I could throw it in the dumpster.
sure.
And we have to look at it as a county.
Yeah.
We have to weigh everything. So if you throw in the dumpster, then you pay a tipping charge. And as a county, I mean, you have to put it in the landfill. And as a county, every time we put something in a landfill, we are obligated, we are liable for that tonnage in perpetuity.
Correct.
So the more you put in landfills, the higher your long-term risk is. And there will be something someday, I would imagine,
There's that, and then.
like barrels with something in it.
I'm sure, yeah.
As Commissioner Nelson referenced, there's other costs that aren't necessarily easy to monitor or to calculate, but if you just think about it in two different streams, if it's collected as MSW, it's going to go to a landfill. We're going to have to bill back a tipping cost and a solid waste management tax that goes with that on both the disposal plus the cost to pick it up. So when you have a dumpster, you're paying that.
You're paying for the size dumpster you have.
You're paying for that dumpster, and that dumpster is going to be, whatever you pay is going to be the cost of disposal plus collecting it.
Correct.
I would imagine
And
at
a
some
tax,
point in the
18%
future,
solid waste management tax.
Steve, we're probably gonna, and collectors might be billing by the pounds rather than by the cubic yard dumpster.
That's what I'm getting
And
to.
then,
Is that
then you would
something we
see,
might do?
then you would see a cost savings.
Yeah.
If you take this, because it's a weighted, then you will see significant savings by doing it recycling. Until that happens, there's not the big incentive to.
And that was
go
my
another
next
way.
question. Is that something that could happen in the near future or not in the near future?
Well, I would think we would have to make sure that this program's gonna
Yeah.
take off and work. We would have to look at what, if it takes off for Becker County and we can look at this working as a region, then we could look for grants to have a facility where we wouldn't then be hauling it. Is that the ultimate
Long-term,
long-term goal?
that's.
And you'd have to weigh the cost of the facility versus cost of trucking, what the benefits are and if there's any resale value
Yeah.
of that compost. I don't know that where they're getting rid of their compost.
I don't know if they've generated that much that, I think it depends on how you handle it. If you clean it up a lot, then you can get it to residents and people want to use.
Well,
the
I
gardens,
mean,
that type
if
of
you
thing.
have compost and it's good clean, it's been through the heat cycles and there's no weeds or, or disease, I think farmers would love to put that on their, fields, especially on the clay knobs, you can get some.
Residents for their gardens.
Yeah, and we currently have a compost site in the landfill now,
We do have,
but that hasn't went through the proven heat things, and I wouldn't trust it myself, but.
We have, in Lakeview, had grass and leaf compost sites that we use regularly for the last 5 years since I've been on the board. We use that. It's not what you're talking about, but, you said, Erica, you said, and I know, I agree, there's a lot of questions here, but somebody's got to start. I think it's the right thing to do. When it comes down to dollars and cents, then to the taxpayer, I want to back up on what I said, but I would make a motion to approve this grant acceptance since we're so far into it already for $178,000. But I do want you to come back in 6 months and specifically talk about exactly how this program is going. I'd like to know. Is 6 months enough time to?
this will be something through the Environmental Services
I'll
Committee.
Okay, sorry.
It will be discussed probably every month, just to give you updates.
And
Oh,
it
yeah,
will
you're
help
environmental,
fill,
right?
like for Prairie Lakes. Because the drier that garbage is down there, the easier it is to burn it. And the less maintenance they have to, if we could get everything out of there and just bring dry garbage there, it would make a big difference on the maintenance.
Because they're
facility.
separating the organic stuff at Prairie Lake, so it's.
Yeah, so there are benefits, there are different benefits to it, and it is a trial and error thing, and I wanted to train bears, but nobody's listening to me, but, so.
So we have a motion and a second for 2F. Do we have any further discussion? So all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, Steve, one last question. Are you fully staffed? And how many employees are out there?
Well, it depends on the time of the year, but what do we got, about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10? There's probably.
10 full-time and more in the summer?
Yeah, it varies, yeah, some are different, there's more.
But you're fully staffed right now?
We are.
Okay,
And then
thank
you
you.
have sentence to serve or.
Yeah, there's sense to serve. No, yeah, I forgot about, we got some truck drivers too.
Truck drivers, yeah.
We got people working at the site.
All right, thanks, Steve. All right, Jim, Highway Department. Morning, Jim. Still morning.
Still morning.
Commissioners.
Morning, Jim.
First item for your consideration is a bid award. Had the bid opening for the Heartland Trail Fraze. You talked a little bit about it earlier, from our Highway 10 down to Frazee. Had an impressive list of bidders and more impressive bid results. We're recommending award to Howe Construction. They were the low bidder for $668,673.03. That's 22% below the engineer's estimate, and should leave us some remaining bond funds, hopefully with that we can still keep in our county and use.
Would that help with paying for that parcel?
That's what we were hoping, because I believe the bond language did allow right-of-way expenses, and hopefully it'd be easier for us to just have them give us the money.
Good.
Yeah,
And pay us back.
That'd be nice.
I'll
Thank
move
you.
to approve the,
2G,
2G.
second.
All right. Do we, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Carried.
Be nice to get that project moving forward.
Yep. Next item is a purchase request. This is for a product called Base One used in our road stabilization when we do reclaiming on our asphalt pavements. This is a pre-buy where we get a little discount. We save about 16% when we buy a little bit before the season, and then use it. We'll be using it on County Road 34 and County Road 36 on those portions that are being reclaimed.
And we've done this for umpteen years, so motion to approve.
second.
We have a motion and a second to purchase the stabilizing agent. Any
Base,
further,
so.
or base, yeah. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Carried.
And then final item is another purchase request. We had programmed replacement of our road sweeper.
for this year. It's included in our budget. The current model is, I think it's just over 10 years old now. But we've priced out a couple different ones, and we're choosing the Brosey model road sweeper. It's a little bit bigger cab, and it is more expensive than the other one, but we just feel it would suit us a little bit better. It seemed better quality than the other model that we looked at. We will get a trade-in value of $10,000. We are going to try and auction that, though, with that reserve, and maybe we can get more money for our road sweeper.
What is the motor on the new one? Is that a diesel or a? I'm just saying,
Yeah.
5,500, that's quite a few hours. It's not underused, for being
No. No, we use it quite a bit in.
We've had it since 2013 though, right?
It seems like yesterday, because I
It-
remember when we
It
got,
does get used.
we traded that, or we had an old, you didn't have anything that worked before this one.
No,
It was-
they get a lot of use and wear on them, so.
That's fine, but I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the road sweeper. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried.
I have one final thing. We had been having meetings on Westlake Drive, plan development down there by the beach. The city council, I think they'll probably be reaching out to you, Carrie, Elsie will, but they're planning a kind of a work session to review kind of the plans and what's going to go on in the beach and on the road on that, and that's on February 6th, next Thursday from 4 to 6. You would be invited to that if you'd like to attend.
You'll invite us? You'll do an invite?
I'll confirm. I'll probably have Kelsey reach out to you, and then she can reach out and let you know, but it's 4 o'clock on
4 to 6
Thursday.
on February 6th.
I would consider that a highway meeting
Yes.
appropriate per diem, and if you do attend, it's a highway meeting.
What-
Fall under highway meeting for per diem and fees.
Well,
highway
I was
committee.
worried about having quorum there.
Well, I think it's just highway
Just a
unless,
highway
I would
committee.
just say the highway department. Yeah.
Well, you'd like to go for being in the city, wouldn't you?
But if the highway goes, that's fine. You can report to me, report or tell us.
if you want to go, then you have to make a motion, so it's
It is a full council meeting, so.
Oh, it is a
And
full
they
council.
inviting all of you if you'd like to go, so you can decide.
February 6th.
Well, then I'll make a motion to allow, or how do I do that? All 5 of us to go if we wish to go on February 6th from 4 to 6 for the Westlake Drive project meeting with the city.
Can we do that if it wasn't on the agenda?
No, we can't do that. Then I can't make a motion to do that.
Yeah, you're not acting on it, you're just acting on a future meeting date.
Okay.
I would suggest just the consensus of the council, and then we'll notice it
Okay, let's do that.
for the meeting if you'd like.
Oh, we will have a meeting on
Oh,
the
yeah,
3rd
that's
also.
right, yeah. That's true.
But would we have to have it posted before the?
Yes.
Yes.
The 3rd?
Yes.
So
So maybe just to be safe, perhaps we'll just notice the meeting.
we'll just notice it and then.
Okay.
But I still think the highway department would get a per diem, so.
Well, you can determine that at your February 3rd meeting.
Yeah.
If you're asking everyone to go, then you can
Well,
ask
yeah.
everyone to get one,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if that's your wishes. There's not, if it's a full board discussion, then you're not going to give 2 commissioners per diem and the rest of you not.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
So we'll put it on the February 3rd agenda.
But I would notice it. I would put it as a notice in the paper prior to that,
Yep.
Yes,
for the possibility of it.
in case you have a quorum, yes.
So can I just, I don't know if there's a point of order or what, Jim, thank you. So why did we confirm the agenda at the beginning? Do we need to do that? Because here's something that came up, it's happening, it's ongoing. What, do we need to confirm the agenda? Something came up, none of us intentionally knew it was going to come up, but it seems pretty important. Do we need to confirm the agenda at the beginning of the meeting is what I'm asking. Is that,
I believe so.
I believe we have to confirm the agenda, yes.
Your agenda,
and then we can't deviate from that?
you can, you should not deviate for action items that involved, I mean.
Is this an action item?
This is an action item to be at an action item, so I would not consider this an action item. This is having a meeting, you're scheduling a meeting for future. I don't think it's you're not doing business. You're not setting policy or or expending money. This is, you want to meet, you want to allow us to meet. So I don't think this would fall under, you need this on the agenda.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
I mean, the thing with Robert's Rules of Orders, it says the first thing you read is what works for your business. I think we've had a standing rule that significant items have to be on the agenda. So public, you're worried about public transparency. Whether we have another meeting down the road, it's not affecting the public if we're announcing we're going to have a meeting in 3 weeks. We're advertising a public meeting is what we're asking to do. So, but if you're asking, we want to send the commissioners to Hawaii for a conference, I think that would be something that you'd want on the agenda so people could see that and say, so I think you kind of got to deal with common sense to some extent too, my opinion.
When are we going to one?
You can go, but
At your own expense.
Yeah.
We follow Robert's Rules of Orders?
Yes.
Okay.
But again, Robert's Rules of Orders is what works for your meeting. Now, the action items and for minutes, the only thing that's required in minutes is action items. So a lot of the stuff in our minutes is information, and the public likes to see that. They like to read that. But there's a lot of things in there we would not have to include in our official minutes. And some of them I get scaled down for the paper just because you get too lengthy, it gets too expensive to put in there. So, I mean, it's a compromise. Now, if you come onto this board and you say, this has to be this way and this, I mean, we're going to probably have to accommodate you, because if the full board isn't in agreement how you move forward, then we need to adjust. Because I think the full board needs to be on the same page on this, on these type of things. So if you feel strongly that this shouldn't be brought up today because of, not this, but if you do, feel free to, and we'll say, well, this isn't urgent. This is something we can bring back to our next meeting, put on the agenda so the public has opportunity to review it.
Thanks, Jim. Does that answer you? Kyle?
A lot of things that we used to do too went through finance, wasn't on the agenda, and we run them through finance committee, bringing to the board and improve them. So that was a way, and now we don't do that nearly as much. So we're more transparent now than we used to be. It used to be, if you couldn't get it on the agenda, you run through finance, bring it and approve through finance agenda. Now we get to finance, in 10 years ago, we had a finance agenda. There was half a dozen action items within finance agenda that wasn't on the agenda. So we have changed considerably. And we can keep changing, if we feel that there's a need to keep changing it. For the better, not for the worse.
Kyle.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Yes.
Morning, Kyle.
Morning, Kyle.
Just wanted to update you on a joint planning board request from the city of Detroit Lakes. Some of you may be aware of it already. In the month of December, pursuant to Minnesota statute, the city's requesting a joint planning board between us, themselves, and Lakeview Township for all planning and land use controls. We're still ironing out some things there. The main thing will be that you have they're suggesting 2 members. That's not set by statute, it's just an equal amount from each governing body. So at that time, you will have 2 appointments to this board. Once the board is established, then ordinances and procedures will be established by that board.
I had a question. In the decision on under number 1, it states to adopt the last sentence of number 1. It says the powers contained in Minnesota section statutes, blah blah blah, within that 2-mile area, and to adopt and enforce the state fire code promulgated pursuant to Minnesota within that 2-mile area. So are we adding state fire code in that 2-mile area? And that was a concern of mine, that we'd now have to hire someone to or we'd have those same state fire codes that the rest of the outside that would be a very big concern for me.
Sure, and I read that as well. I'm not entirely sure what this board has to do and what it does not. One of the, concerns I have is is this for any type of permit application? Are you gonna have to go to them for a site permit or anything like that? So I read that as well. One thing the statute does say is that the city is responsible for administering it, but obviously those are your constituents within that area, so I understand that concern. But it's not something I could speak to right now.
Well, yeah, that's a type of concern I would have if you form this type of committee.
Right.
I don't know if that was the whole area or just in Lakeview Township they're looking at in this one, and I don't know what that means, if that would require them to have a higher standard of building a house, that you now have to have a state fire code inspection rather than, so.
Right.
I would have those concerns.
I agree with you. I think the intent of the city is for subdivision control only, right? But it does make it very clear that there's a Board of Appeals here, there's a Board of Adjustments. So that's something that definitely needs to be ironed out. Lakeview Township does have their own representation, legal counsel, and Troy Gilchrist, who's a pretty knowledgeable fella. I could certainly ask him, about this.
Now,
State fire code.
there's some areas of concern with it. Just to iron them out. It's not like they're good or
Right.
bad, but you better go in and knowing what the consequences are. The unintended consequences might be very.
So I have all the history on this, being at the township, taking back this extraterritorial stuff, and Kyle does too, and so does Roy Smith. That's where it started. So they could have done this before. Any one of us, the township, or the city, or the county, could have forced this joint powers. All of us chose not to. Now with the annexation, especially in Lakeview Township, the city has said, we want a seat at the table, which they can get without doing all of this. If that's what they want.
I'm looking to you for, because this is specifically Lakeview Township, so are you
Well, our
saying
fire
you're not?
contract is with the city, so is Erie's, so is Detroit's. We contract with the city of Detroit Lakes for fire protection.
Right.
So I don't know. That would be a Troy Gilchrist, who was a former township
Right,
attorney.
but state fire code is totally different than fire protection.
Okay.
That would be, now your house is required to have sprinklers, rather than not.
Outside my wheelhouse.
But it's outside mine too, but those are the questions we need answered before. But, are you saying that you don't want to consider moving into this agreement?
We don't have a choice. The city is forcing this on us, on the county and the township.
There has been, I did speak with the city administrator, Kelsey, and there has been talks about potentially maybe relinquishing some control back to them within a certain amount of, they call it like tiers or rings, like let's say half mile. If Lakeview was willing to relinquish a half a mile of its zoning controls back to the city, they may forego this, but I do think we should probably meet with them. Both Commissioner Jepson and Hanson are appointed to my department, so we could set up a meeting with the city and with Lakeview and maybe hash some of that out.
Well, the concern, if we want to go into this, you're going to have two representatives from this board, you and
Probably
Dave, and you'd have two from your township, the Lakeview, and then you'd have two from the city. Now, majority rules on that board, so they can get on the board, then they can get an idea of what's moving forward. But it's these things like the state fire code. Is that going to change the building codes? Are we going to have to go inspect differently than in those? Are the requirements different for those buildings rather than, not? Or is the city going to be doing those inspections? Or, those are the things that are really worrisome to me. I'm not worried about the board, because between the city and the township and the county, I think it'll be a pretty fair, representation, but it's the unintended things that worry me more.
For me, it would scare me if now, Larry, if I lived there now, now Larry Remen's in charge of my project. That would be very hard for me to deal with. And so hopefully, the township and the county, like you say, they have more voting power. Hopefully, we won't give them any of that. And it's the same thing with building, their building codes. We don't have a building code.
Right.
Frost footings, all sorts of things come into this.
That's my concern.
Yeah,
That's
and
exactly my concern.
And
Are we
I
gonna be
would hope that we would not agree to letting the city do
Well,
anything.
But it seems
My-
like we don't have a choice.
My
Well,
question
you
for the
can vote-
committee,
You can vote it down. So if we have two commissioners and.
in the
township has-
meeting,
in the
not at the
meeting,
board.
You can vote not to do it. We
I
don't.
think the statute's really clear, though, going back to it, it says the board shall have all powers contained in sections 462.351 and 462.364, and shall have authority to adopt
Okay,
that
so-
fire code. So,
So this board would not have to adopt
Right.
enforcing a fire code that's more strict than outside of that area.
right, so essentially what you would do is, we'd most likely acknowledge it, right? Form it, work with the township to adopt the controls, the city as well, but that board will decide what it's gonna actually have for controls. And I would think it's going to be subdivisions only. I think that's all the city is really looking for. So I think we can avoid those.
Okay.
Maybe, well, let me back up. So is this in effect? Like, this is the resolution, if what Phil is saying is the city has the right to do this, so is it in effect? And now we just need to figure it out?
Now we need to appoint members.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of in lingo, right? The township has acknowledged the request. But again, I did speak with Kelsey, and he kind of threw out a few ideas to maybe avoid this. But it's not something I can negotiate. I'm going to need.
Some of those ideas, I think it'd be better to have the board than relinquish some of the control myself.
Right, I think so too.
So our preference would be to have the board.
Well, I mean, unless it's very minimal, but I mean, if it's just one item of working together in the first half mile I think that's doable. But
I think a preference would not to be to have this joint powers board. The city is forcing the joint powers board to happen, so it's going to be one more level of government because the city wants to have a say in what happens. I think that's fair, right? To
Correct.
encapsulate what's going on here.
Right. But again, depending on somebody like Troy Gilchrist's opinion, maybe you can potentially limit what this board actually oversees. Maybe it's strictly plats. Maybe it's not minor subdivisions or something of that nature. Really, where this came up is there's a few parcels of property on the south side of Detroit Lake there. One where that gas station was going to go, and then one a little further south on Abbey Lake. The gentleman came to us looking to make lots, and that spurred the city to then go into, I don't know what you want to call it, forceful annexation or what have you. So really, how it got spurred was that immediate vacant land that they are trying to, annex, and they were nervous that we were going to make lots or what have you there. So maybe in a perfect world, not every subdivision would go to this board. Maybe it would only have to meet, once a year.
maybe they could just, if there's something that they see annexed within the next 5 years,
Right.
then that board could have a purpose.
So then, does that board make the final decision? That would be my question.
Yeah.
Does that board, it doesn't come to the planning commission, it just goes straight to this board, and that's
Right.
the final?
So they would be responsible to have a public hearing and all that.
Which the city said that they would manage the,
They didn't say they're required to.
They're
City is
required to.
required, in a joint powers, the city is required to manage the,
meetings and the postings and the,
yeah, from everything I understand, yeah.
well, that says that in the, Well, what are you looking, you're just updating that, tell us where we're at with this?
Yeah, and just to inform you, I wanted to bring it back that last meeting, or the last meeting in December, but I was not available. And I think we probably should just have a little bit more conversations with them and Lakeview as well. I haven't heard from Troy Gilchrist in a little while. He was gonna begin working on this. Brian was involved as well, and Brian basically asked Troy to lead off on it.
I wonder if it would be helpful in those conversations to have a meeting with, I'm assuming it would be Dave and Phil, just because it's their districts. I mean, maybe a meeting with all parties of who would potentially be in the agreement.
I think that'd be wise.
Or the
too.
board.
I think we can avoid this joint powers board by sitting around a table and hashing some things out. I think we kind of all want the same thing. Have the developer, the county, the city, and the township. I think we could do it without this extra level of government. But
Well, I don't know that the developer would be involved in the conversation as far as the joint powers.
Well,
they would be the one coming to the joint powers.
But
asking for a permit.
Kyle, what's the process of the city annexing in property? What is the process?
I believe it's through an administrative judge's order. There's obviously different types, but if you have orderly annexation, that's buy-in from the citizens and whatnot. But this is a decision made by a judge. And I would say, Phil, I believe you're at the meeting. The Planning Commission heard the concerns of the city and where they would like to be growing. Obviously, they're limited, different directions. South is their priority. We tabled it. No one acted on it or anything of that nature. They heard those concerns, and the developer was basically told to go meet with the city and the township and see if they could come to some type of agreement. So I think Commissioner Hanson's right. There maybe the whole thing could be avoided if there is a talk. I mean,
This is specific for the one, you're talking the one application.
you're right. Well, it seems to be where this came from, right? But we didn't act on it. That's the
This
point.
must have been at the December Planning Commission that I missed.
I think would have been November, the Wendell Smith, or not Wendell Smith.
Chad Wendell.
Chad Wendell. Chad Wendell, yeah, again, we tabled it.
So simply put, at dispute here is what Chad Wendell wants. He purchased the property. He's the landowner. What the city wants, as it being close to the city proximity, what the township wants, and what the county wants. Requires, administers. So like I said, we can do this joint, and that'll be the legal way to do it. But I think before we even get to that point, if we sat down, I think we could do that and avoid this, which I think everybody would like to avoid this. The city told me that they want a seat at the table. That's what they said. That's what they think this joint powers is going to do. I rebutted, you can do that without this joint powers agreement. And maybe we should have a meeting.
I think there's probably some value there.
I think we should.
I don't want
to find out exactly what they want. I mean, I don't know if I want. I don't know if I'd want them to have control.
Right.
I mean, the issue is we get past this one application and then the next application comes, are we going to be, I mean, is the board the better way to handle it all?
Well, it depends on what the city's requiring. If they're just worried about these plots or these plats that are coming forward that are looking to be annexed, then I think it could be avoided by just simple meetings. And I think that partnership is, I mean, I think our relationships are good enough where we can do that. If they want input on every single thing, then the board then it would be a full-fledged board, similar to, I mean, monthly meetings. And so it's kind of in their ballpark because if this is the requirement to establish this, and it's required to be established after it's petitioned, is that correct? So it's kind of, we are going to have to do it if they want and.
So we need to find out exactly what they want.
Right. It just, speaking with Kelsey, there does seem some type of appetite there to maybe avoid it. It was brought up, at least, you should be aware of that,
And then we need to find out what they want to avoid it.
right.
What is our timeline on establishing?
I don't believe there is one. The statute doesn't reference, so many days or anything like that.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is we'll want to move faster than slower just because of some developers down there that are probably looking to do something.
Because the one, was it tabled by, like, we don't have the timeline on the one contend with?
He tabled it.
He tabled it,
Yeah.
okay. So that would be where the timeline would come in, is if we have
Right,
an application deadline that we need to
right. So
address.
a few, are all of you going to AMC? So I could,
The 22nd?
Tomorrow.
so I could,
yeah,
set-
just
I
us
could
three.
look at next week for the two of you to sit down with them.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, I think we'll most likely invite, obviously, the township, but they're at Troy as well.
Yep, that sounds like a good plan.
The second item I have for you is a public hearing request on behalf of the MPCA. We've had a few of these before. Basically, the PCA doesn't have the capability to have a public hearing as we do. So the request is just to open it for any testimony, if there is any, and then close it, and then we just forward that testimony onto the PCA. And
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing for permit to construct the cap facility, parcel 37, blah, 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 Owl Dairy.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to open the meeting for that.
Is it, so we're going to request a public hearing, or this is?
To open,
This is
open the public hearing.
This is, do we have any further discussion on opening for the public hearing? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The hearing is now open. Is there anybody that would like to testify at the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to recognize that the screen is showing the public,
it's a,
publication and the application,
Yep,
and we've received no one here to speak on
there
it.
is no one.
And Mr. Chair, we'll just note the time that we opened and
We opened the meeting at 11:21 a.m.
Mr. Chair, with no one here speaking on this, or on, maybe we should ask online, just to make sure we ask online.
Is there anybody online that would like to testify at the public hearing? Is there anybody online that would like to testify? There is not.
Mr. Chair, with nobody being online or present to speak on this, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second to close the public hearing?
I'll second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, I think we should probably state a specific time for public hearings, though, in the future. So we kind of,
Yeah.
On the agenda.
On the agenda, and
It should have
then
a
we go to it
specific
at that time.
Can we do them at the beginning or towards the beginning of the meeting then? Because I know you guys have, in past, we've had to wait 15 minutes because we had a scheduled time for some things in the, I don't know if they're
Yeah.
public hearings, but we had to wait.
Well, whenever we have planning and zoning, there's usually interest in it, so we never move forward with that, and that's the one we
We
usually.
just wait.
Public hearings are usually held when, and in this case, it's usually earlier, so. You're just saying you don't want something scheduled where we have to wait at a meeting when we're not doing it.
And we have adjusted our agenda time.
But a public hearing, you could not
We
adjust.
could not adjust the public hearing.
Just like planning and zoning things, we cannot adjust the time on
No.
controversial ones. We wait till that.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're behind, then we will, like,
What do you mean you can't adjust them? I mean, you had it at the end of the meeting here. We have a meeting time at 10:10, so sometime after 10:10, that public hearing's gonna.
We don't adjust them forward.
forward.
So we couldn't
So
have done it at
we
9:30.
never, if we
Why
have,
not?
because
Because
it's
it's
public,
published.
public.
Because it's
at-
published that they could show up at that time.
I think he's saying though in the future, like,
Right.
you're asking to move my items towards the front of the agenda in the future. Right, not during, you weren't asking today to move this one.
No,
He's saying
no,
future.
I understand. I was just explaining that you can move, you can't, planning and zoning items, we do not move ahead of the agenda because there's usually people that will come and speak on, and that's what you're saying, don't
I think what Phil's asking is that in the
Don't put
future,
those,
should
yeah.
we put planning and zoning at the beginning of the agenda?
Or public hearings.
Or
Or
public hearing.
public hearings, yeah.
That's what I was asking.
I wouldn't, what is the reason why you're always last?
Oh, yeah.
Is that just
always-
how it's always been?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're here to serve the public. I think if they don't want to sit around for the whole meeting, I think we should accommodate them as well as we can. Is there appetite for that same thought, or am I missing something?
Well, it certainly can be moved forward, but they don't have to, they can come in and go anytime they want. So if they see it on the agenda at 10:30, let's just, for an example, we're not going to move it to 9:30 and then have them come late. I mean, so they would miss it.
So whatever.
So we can put it at 9:30 if it's on the agenda, or 9 o'clock, that's fine. But if there's things that people want to hear, we don't move it. We don't try not to move ahead of the agenda. Even if it's highway, we don't like to move, we don't like to take things before, because someone might look at, oh, I want to come in and talk about highway, because that base one, I offered to sell it, and they didn't consider me, so I'm going to show up at 10:05. If we move that to 9:05, now we're not giving them the opportunity to speak. Not that we would, but that's the mentality. We don't move things forward if they're controversial or possible, but we certainly can move planning and zoning at 9 o'clock if you want. 9:30.
Consistently.
I don't know if that benefits, I mean, that's fine, it doesn't matter to me. I don't know if that benefits this, I mean, they're not gonna wait the whole meeting for 10, they're gonna
doesn't.
show up at 10:30, yeah. Because they know that the
Planning and
public
zoning
hearing
is
is,
the one that
we are
that
gonna keep on, not.
you
move
got to
ahead.
kind of keep on schedule,
Yeah.
because so many people come
Yeah,
to,
we're not gonna move it ahead.
So would it
It's
make sense for us to have planning and zoning after Carrie's report?
We'll try it next time.
Sure,
We could try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll.
sure, that's fine.
the only thing is that they announce it at
We'll just have to
make sure you
known at
announce it
planning
that
commission.
whatever time it is, that this will be discussed at the board at this time.
And that would typically always be the same time if we do it after county administrator report. I mean, so that would maybe be more consistent, but.
Talk fast.
Talk fast, yeah, is there anything else for the,
Well, to go back to that, no, in the past, when finance did a lot of the stuff, we would move Mary, to try to keep other things on schedule, we would move Mary. Mary was going to be here the whole time, so there's things that you can move to the end of the agenda that we would say, well, we're going to move this back because, licensors, there's so much that was hers that we didn't. So even administrative report, we could move, if we're behind schedule, we can move that stuff to the end. So we don't want to keep people waiting, for different things. We don't want to make them stay if they don't want to. Through so many things. So we do, especially if there's a judge here for something, or we want to make sure that we accommodate their schedule to try to keep them on. So if it's county reports or county, usually there's not, like Steve was here, he had a lot of stuff, but nobody's here to listen, to his stuff, but,
Just name.
yeah.
and George?
So that's how we can adjust without too much trouble internally. But Kyle's the one that.
If you guys have some opinions on that too, maybe we can talk about that next meeting to see if there's ways to reshuffle.
I think the consensus of the board is that we just need to be cognizant of citizens waiting to testify and
Yes.
try to
Yep.
accommodate. I
Yep.
think
Yeah.
that's really what you're saying, and
Yes.
I think we can do that.
Okay.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.